Yo. Can't believe it's week 13 of the college football season,
Yeah,
man. It's crazy.
It's almost done.
2 weeks to go. It's wild. It's
3
wild.
weeks for some, but yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was like, when we were, me and Justin do the high school podcast, and we're like, it's already round 2 of the high school playoffs. And it's just like, just the months of September, October, and November fly by.
October hits, it's over.
I mean, but then the wild part too is there's still it feel like so much. Well, there's so much more in college, obviously, with the playoff now, but like the NFL still feels like it's got so much more.
Yeah.
So it's like
speaking of high school, did you see Teddy B's win? First round win at Miami Northwestern?
Yeah.
69-0. I'm not sure who they played, but
they didn't play anybody good. The wild part about that's the 3A bracket.
Are they 3A?
Yeah, they've changed everything back up again.
I know it's all stupid now, but yeah.
I don't know if you heard the story, but the team in that classification was not Northwestern; it was Miami Central.
Yeah,
and they had to forfeit all their games.
Yep, because of an ineligible player.
And that's the region or the classification that Reigns is in. So now Reigns
is a nice little path.
It's looking like it's going to be maybe a Reigns Northwestern state title, and
that should be a good game.
I'd probably go with Teddy B and the boys, but hey, that's for another topic for another day.
That's for your other podcast you do.
Yes. So I'm donning
football. Check out Sponge's
podcast. Check out the Varsity 4 podcast. We talk all high school sports. Me and JB. My boy DJ Lagway allowed me to wear the Gator hat once again.
You said you were not wearing the Gator hat regardless if they won or not.
Yeah, I know. Well, I guess the things and narratives change very quickly. It's kind of wild what winning and a quarterback will do for you. I guess the other thing is Lagway saved me from having to wear Florida State gear since now they've won their game.
I'm not taking anything away from Lagway and the boys, but I think Brian Kelly helped you too.
He might. Yeah, no doubt.
PK's terrible, dude.
It's kind of crazy.
He does not fit in the Southeastern Conference.
It's kind of wild too, that whole narrative of him and how LSU fans feel about him, and it's weird because I think
you control your destiny.
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't have been any kind of like they should have been ready to play and ready to go. Like they win their next 3 games, and the Gators are a mid team, and so like your last 3 games were very winnable to where you're in the SEC championship.
I felt like how they lost a tough game. The last couple they've had tough games going into the Florida game, and you're like, these guys are playing for something. They got a good offensive line, pretty good quarterback. Defense is playing well for the most part for this season. And week in and week out, you're just sitting there and you're like, what are you doing? How does Kyron Lacy not have his first target until almost the end of the first half?
Yeah,
things like that.
No, I know. Well, how about like you say,
you got to give the Gators credit. They showed up, they played, but speaking of the other team, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, like I say, how about you've talked about it on numerous times when we talk about LSU, how good their offensive line has been all year and how they got 2 first-round guys. They had literally only given up 6 sacks the entire season.
The Gators lived in the
We
backfield.
had 7.
They lived in the backfield the whole game, and that was one of the things that was pretty impressive. I didn't think the Gators would be able to get that kind of pressure on Nussmeier. He threw the ball 47 times, which is a problem. They can't run the football.
That's been their biggest problem all year.
Yeah, I mean, you know what the biggest thing is, just talking about Florida, because that's who we're really talking about, is finally both of us have been saying this majority of the season is, if those older guys don't want to be out there and they're not living up to the standard, get their asses off the field and let the young guys play.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the young guys play for Florida, and they're giving more effort than the older guys. It's like crazy, because you even seen Montreal run a little harder because he knows those 2 guys. I mean, I know he just came back off an injury, but the couple runs he had, he looked like a different guy since the Miami game, for the most part, with Ball and Jacoby Jackson running in front of him. And those guys are running like 2 men possessed for the most part.
They're toting it. I saw the clip where Jaden Ball hit like 20 miles per hour, and that dude's 220. That dude's 220.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big kid. Like, he doesn't look maybe that big, but when he gets going, he also delivers. Him and Jacoby, they deliver. They run with their pads and they will hit you with their shoulders and they like
Yeah.
Blake. Like I say, that's the one thing going into the game where I was like, okay, we got a shot in the dark because if Lagway plays, that was my biggest thing. I honestly did not know if Lagway was going to
Well,
be healthy enough to even get through the
well,
game. What was he going to be like? So we had no shot with Yale quarterback, none.
well, what's funny to me is like if you're a defensive coordinator of the other team and you hear that this guy's out because of a hamstring, one, he's not going to run the football. Two, why wouldn't you pressure him to get him to move? But at the same time, the Gator offensive line did a good job protecting
Yeah, that's one thing. The
Lagway.
Gator offensive line has stepped up in the last several weeks,
But
and
but I
Lagway
just
did a
feel
good
like
enough job of getting up in
getting
the
the
pocket
ball.
and
Yeah.
avoid. Yeah,
But I still feel like Blake Baker, you're known as a pressure style defensive coordinator, and you had to come up with some exotics that those guys hadn't seen yet. And they just both lines of scrimmage for the Gators is the reason why they won that football game.
well, I think
There's
yeah.
no other way
Well,
to put it.
again, this is the part where Lagway has been so deadly to where his deep ball big play
Yeah.
ability has
Hmm.
put teams on nerve. So you're kind of like, okay, if we come after this guy, he's going to have a one-on-one throw, and he's been hitting
That's fine.
these.
I
And
feel like
yeah,
this week that's
that's
fine
where
because
that's where
you
you
can't
tip.
run.
Yeah, and here's the thing: Ole Miss is they can get pressure with just that 4. So
Yeah, that's
that's
gonna
where
be
I
a
think
different story.
we're gonna have an issue. I think obviously Saturday, but when LSU did bring pressure and like that one ball he threw to DK early in the game, I
Yeah, he
mean
put out on a dime,
it was like, dude, this guy's like he just puts it
dropped it
in the
in there.
bucket. So it's
Yeah,
like,
but
what,
that like I say for me is if he's healthy, of course you got to worry about the dual threat ability and the deep ball. But when I know a guy can't
oh
really
yeah,
run, or I'm just saying like I'm going to test you to see if you could run,
yeah,
at least
and he
get some
didn't even
pressure.
not
He
one
didn't have to
carry for
move.
him. Yeah, he didn't.
I don't think there was a couple times where it looked like he was about to like take it down and run, and then he was just like, nah, let me just throw it and get rid of it. And then with a good running game, I mean, that goes to show you know my philosophy. If you can run the ball, you can do almost anything on offense. You just got to be if they can't stop the run, it doesn't matter what they do. They're in flux because they're like, are they going to run it here? Are they going to throw
Well,
it?
the wild part about it is when you look at the stat sheet, it was ridiculous. They ran like double the amount of plays.
Mm-hmm.
We really didn't run it for that much either.
Mm-hmm.
We only ran like 43 total plays.
Yeah,
Ball
LSU try to
only
control
had
the game.
yeah, he like LSU had so many opportunities. The stat was they had 3 drives, I think, of like 28 minutes or something,
Yeah.
like several hundred yards, and they only got 6 points out
Well,
of that.
remember they had a couple touchdowns that got called back for like an offensive pass interference on Lacey, and then there was another one. I think there was like a holding call, so that took off 14 points off the board where they had to settle for threes, and then the Gators almost got off the field before half with a big sack, but LSU was still able to get 3 on the board before the half. So for the most part, you just got to bend but don't break, and that's
No,
what the
well,
Gators have been doing.
that's literally the philosophy that like they give up yards, they give up, they even when they played well, even like in the Georgia game, going back to
Yeah.
that week, the defense played well enough where they gave up a lot of yards to Carson. He did turn it over enough to keep us, in the game and kept it
Mm-hmm.
in there. But for the most part, whatever flipped, they switched, after that bye week going into that UCF game. The defense has played like I almost think that's been the change in what's going on is the fact that like they look different because the defense is allowing them to be in games because they're not,
Yeah.
getting blown out or anything.
Well, I think
The whole the
it's kind of
Texas
a
deal
gut check.
was they blew them out.
Yeah,
That
I
was
mean that was just when you're playing one of the better offenses that really did look like one of the better offenses in the country. They just did enough, and they just schemed it up. When you're playing
well, no,
against Sark,
that's what I'm saying. Sark's literally dialing up triple
yeah,
reverses.
yeah,
I mean, like it's like damn dog. Like you got to dial that type of play.
that'll
The
I mean
fake bubble screen go.
that'll be something probably 90% of those kids on defense will never ever see again.
Exactly.
Majority of
I'm
college,
worried. Well, that's another thing I'm worried about this week because Lane will
well, yeah,
scheme up some of those
yeah, him and Little
RPO
Weiss Jr. Yeah,
RPO throws for sure. But
but I don't think Ole Miss really has to do that too much. They can, but it's just a high caliber offense, and I think the problem with LSU is LSU just can't run the football. And it's just more and more when you watch it. I don't think Brian Kelly's just a good fit in that conference. I mean, did you see him yelling at the kid and telling him he's uncoachable and
Yeah.
everything on the sideline?
No,
Like
for sure. He got blasted for that for
he
sure.
he he might be right, but I don't think that was just the time or place when you know the cameras are on you. And I just don't think those kids vibe to his person. It's just his personality just doesn't fit to me at a LSU,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But like I say, give kudos to Florida. Where do you go from here? Is the biggest thing. They've had some good commits flip from Florida State and a couple of other places to commit to UF. Now, can you get those names on the dotted line in December in a couple of weeks? Is the biggest thing. And then what do you do in the offseason when you lose a DK and a Badger? More than likely, how
There,
do you
there is
replace those
another
guys?
there is another hot Arizona State wide receiver.
Yeah, I did see that. I did see
Pipeline it
that.
over. Just get the pipeline. Pearsall and
Yeah.
Badger. This guy, whatever.
So, yeah, I mean, it's regardless of what happens this week at Ole Miss, you want to say more than likely you're going to win your last game of the season,
Right.
and that puts you at what, 6 wins?
6 and
If you beat,
6.
hey,
Yeah.
that's better than what the outlook was 4 or 5 weeks ago, where we're like, will this team even win 5 games?
Yeah. No.
So, I mean, who
Right.
cares?
Right now, what's kind of crazy is the buzz. This week has been a buzz week. It's like you get a big win
Yeah.
against LSU where they've had your number for the last
Hmm.
5 years.
Yeah.
They go ahead
The,
and like I
the
say
curse is
last week.
over, Marco.
Yeah, we talked. I know, right? He got cut, but he got picked back up by somebody. I think Cincinnati might have picked him up because he
Yeah.
got waived. You saw he got waived, right?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, literally, he got cut the very next day after on Sunday, and then
Oh, okay.
he recently just got picked up, I think, by Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I have to look it up, but
Who has the shoe?
yeah. So there's been some positive buzz with all that because
Yeah, for
they
sure.
did the whole retaining of Billy, which again I still question. Like we go back and I'm tired of having the conversation of, well, guess what? We should have beat Tennessee on the road because we were there, and if we went for 2,
But you
we would have
didn't.
beat Tennessee on the road. Oh, we hung with Georgia. If Lagway would have stayed in the game, we would have won.
But you didn't.
Again, if those things would have happened, then guess what? Yeah, we would be an 8-win team, and then you're talking differently. But those things didn't happen. Just like last year, oh, if we wouldn't have rushed 12
Yep.
men on the field, we would have beat Arkansas. So those things are still there.
And
But
it's it. I give more credit to the players than the coaches
well, that's
because
where I'm at right now. I'm rooting for these players. They're playing hard. They're
yeah,
playing ball
because
still.
but suppose there's still boneheaded decisions being made and guys not getting on the field for special teams or and you're just like, can you get to play in early? Like you still see they've decreased a little bit, but they can't by week 12 of the football season. You can't keep having those stupid little things go on where there's miscommunication where it comes for players getting on and off the field and special teams and all of that. But like I say, give them credit. They won the football game.
I'm trying to think too. At the beginning of the year, what did I say we were going to win 7 games?
You said 7.
Yeah, that'd have been
So, I
nice.
mean,
But
bowl game puts you at 7. I mean, do you count
no,
that?
6. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't counting that because
You were counting regular season.
yeah. But I mean, sure. All right, let's go 7 and 6. That'd be great. But yeah, like I say, you didn't know how good this team was going to be or that team or whatever. Like one of the wins I thought we'd have was like Texas A&M at home week 2. I thought we were going to be better off, but we're not.
Yeah.
We weren't then. So it's like what the good buzz is the fact that you've, like I said, just in that time that they said, okay, Napier's got the backing of the administration, so he's not leaving. Lagway's not leaving. You should be keeping this core of young players intact. Like I say, you flipped like 3 different recruits just this week. Jamie French is now rumored in to be like maybe a hot target that could possibly come into. So we went from like 50th to like 28th just in the weekend in
I
recruiting. So
told you
now,
I didn't think they were going to finish 50. I figured
so
they would
now
be in their 20s.
now you add in a couple more names. Solomon Thomas from Raines, Florida State commit, also in the rumor mill of coming.
I mean,
He's a 5-star kid.
I
So
think a lot of those guys are jumping off of that ship over in Tallahassee.
it's literally I was talking to Dave this morning, dude. Outhouse from the penthouse, man. Like what's the attraction? What would even want you? Why would you even want to go to Florida State now?
It's
recruit or portal
like when you think about the Florida versus Florida State thing, like as a Florida fan, if a Florida State fan's talking trash to you, you could be like, dude, our schedule is the number one schedule in the country. Even if you don't want to give it credit to be number one,
Right.
it's a top 5 toughest schedule in the
Right.
country.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we knew that
Florida's
going in. It got even tougher when you looked at a Miami and a Texas A&M.
yeah, but then you look at a Florida State and you're like, I mean, yes, you play your conference, but why do you only have one win on the season?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason that Florida State has only one win on the season, playing in the ACC, playing with the talent they have.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
it was funny because I forgot who said it. I heard it last week or the week before, and someone was like, "The Georgia game was the sign because those were going to be your guys this year." When you sit down and really think about it, but yeah, it's sad. And if you're a top recruit, why, like you say, why would you want to go to Tallahassee right now when you don't know what's going on? You're seeing coordinators and position coaches getting fired, and Mike's going to have to make some big decisions in the next 2-3 weeks. And if he doesn't, that recruiting class is going to be bad. I mean,
yeah.
it's already bad.
Yeah, it's falling apart now. And I even heard their best receiver in the class is looking at South Carolina now. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
they're not just, they're decommitting everywhere. Then the problem is what portal guy is going to come in there and be like, yeah, I want to go there. So it's like they're in a
No,
funky
then how
mess,
many
man.
portal guys are going to leave there and be
Well,
like, I
that
don't even want
look,
to be here anymore?
no, for sure. Like I say, it's they're in a very
Peculiar.
vicarious, tricky
Yes.
situation here because,
Yes.
and like I say, it's crazy how quick that
Things flip.
flip. I mean, it was that's nuts. That like we're literally a year ago we're
Yeah.
arguing them that they should be one of the Final Four teams in, and now they got one win. So
Yeah.
major bad stuff. So like I say, good vibes right now with the Gators. Like I say, we'll
Yeah.
talk about Ole Miss here in a little bit. Last week obviously the Canes were off and the Knowles were off. So literally the other big game was the night game. The other big SEC game. The
I mean, you
Georgia
say the big
Bulldogs.
game. I think there were other big games that are
No, there
shaping the
was.
landscape of college football, but just schedule wise, yeah, Tennessee Georgia was probably the biggest game of the weekend
Yeah, well,
by
that
far.
basically it flipped, Georgia back into the college football
Yep,
playoffs and Tennessee out. So that was like
I agree.
so now again,
Well,
Georgia,
yeah, hold
it
on. But
goes,
as we're jumping into this would makes the LSU game losing to Florida even bigger. Now everybody's sitting there with 2 losses, like, we're still like, I know what Lane said that some coaches, I don't blame them. Some coaches probably don't want to play for the conference championship game,
yeah,
but everyone's still in it. At the end of the day, you still play to win that SEC championship game,
no, for
and
sure,
you
for
want to
sure.
win it because that's bragging rights, especially if you're saying you're the best conference in the country. You
Yeah,
want to be named the best team in the best conference of the country. And now, if you're Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss, hell, even Texas A&M, you're all sitting there like, hey, we're back in it. Because I
yeah,
mean, I
no, for
think
sure.
going
Like
into this weekend, it was what
it, it's
A&M, Texas, and Texas A&M. Obviously, they had to
that's
play each other, but the winner of
that's
that
next
game
week.
was in next week,
Well,
more
no,
than likely,
yeah,
versus I think Georgia or Bama. No, it would have been now it's Bama versus the winner of Texas A&M if they both win this week.
yeah,
But Georgia, Tennessee, you're sitting there, you're like, we're not out of it yet.
yeah. No, we knew it was going to be a mashup hodgepodge. And
Mm-hmm.
like I say, we'll talk about college football playoff talking. I know it's been like the hot button
Topic,
issue
yeah,
with
yeah.
Indiana and
No.
Texas
The
and
reason why I brought it up because I'm
no,
like, if
no,
you're
it's
Georgia, Tennessee, you're still in
yeah.
it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like that Georgia, I mean Tennessee was, they were in prime spot. They only had the
Yeah.
one loss. But then again, now like I say, you're getting those two losses. Everybody's clipping themselves in these big matchups. And so like I think what a lot of it boils down to when you look at some of these big time games is, playing at home, feeling
Mm-hmm.
comfortable, having the big environment. That's why I think the Georgia win at Texas was pretty big because they beat them at Texas, and that's
Yeah.
their
No, that's
their
huge
one blemish. But
on the road. Yeah, that's huge.
when you look at the Carson Beck splits from home and road, that's where he's played not well. He's played better in Athens. He's only thrown 2 interceptions at Athens. I mean, he threw obviously the 3 at Texas. He threw the 3 here in Jacksonville. So that was half of his interceptions
Yeah,
that he threw in
that's
the last
definitely the
5
difference in
games.
this game this week.
Yeah, he didn't turn
Carson.
the ball. He didn't turn the ball over. He played well through 2 touchdowns, rushed one in. I thought that I felt about Tennessee all year. Nico just hasn't lived up to like this
No. Not
killer
yet.
quarterback,
I think he
and
will. I think he will,
he definitely has the
but
capability of it. He
I mean,
definitely
this
has the
is first year
capability of it.
starting, so it definitely looks it's definitely easier when you're playing against the UTSAs and the Tennessee Techs and stuff like that when they were putting up 70 points a game the first 3-4 weeks. But then when you get into that competition where those you're not going to have those one-on-ones. You think that that's my guy's one-on-one where these more complex SEC defenses are going to give you different looks. They can give you 3 looks in one play. And then
Yeah,
you're thinking, oh, they're cover 2, then they're cover 3, then they're, hey, we're 0 and we're going after you and whatnot. Um, but I just think, you probably played one of the best defenses in the country this week. But they jumped out 10-0. And if you're Tennessee, you're like, all right, we're feeling good. We're up 10-0. And then Georgia just slowly does what Georgia does, you
it
know?
was almost when Tennessee jumped up, it was like, okay, we're about to have a repeat
Yeah.
performance of this Ole Miss,
Yep.
and then finally after they got up 10-0, then Georgia had one of those vintage answer drives. They always do that.
Yeah.
Georgia always has that. All right, let's answer, and they do.
Mhm.
And Beck played good. Like I say, Nico didn't. Samson did what he does on the ground. He does what
Yeah,
he
he had
did.
100 over 100, yeah.
It's just more so. Georgia's biggest problem, I think, which is everybody known, is their inability to run the football.
Yeah.
And
There's too
I,
many
I love
injuries at that
I
that
love
running
Nate.
back
I
position.
love Nate. Yeah,
Yeah,
ETN hasn't been healthy all year.
no.
ETN when he's
And
healthy,
that offensive line is not what that offensive line has been
the
the
O
last
line's
3
been
years.
banged up. The O line's not as good as they've been in the past.
Yeah,
They're
I
not.
mean,
They're not the road graders.
and you would think that, with all the 5 stars they have up front, they would be better. I mean, they have a lot of veterans, but they haven't been able to run the ball. And one of the things I think that's helped Carson that he's finally started doing these last couple of weeks is getting the tight ends way more involved.
Yeah,
Like
no,
when
for
you have
sure.
Lucky and Delp. I mean, Delp,
Well,
this is
even the
probably
other
Oscar
kid.
Delp's probably best game he's had since he's been at Georgia with 2 TDs.
Yeah, no. Well, the other kid came out of nowhere. The
The freshman,
81 was his name.
I know you're talking. I can't think of his
Mark,
name, but
I can't,
you know,
Yersick, 84.
if you got to go 3 tight ends and they have 3 really good tight ends, like I think they just try to depend on those receivers a little too much and try to get those guys the balls. Like,
Like I said,
hey, if they're not doing it, huh?
it was the white boy from Vandy transfer who had the big game Saturday, Humphreys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He did.
So, but no, I
Yeah.
think I also going back when I was talking to Justin, I was talking to Ricky about it because he was over here watching. I was like, dude, I was like, Justin hates the fact that Bobo's the coordinator. He's like,
What?
you get Mark Rick results when you have Mark Rick staff guys,
I swear,
and
Georgia fans hate Bobo.
I mean, I guess
Why?
look at. I guess they just don't feel like he's creative, and he's too conservative when certain
Sparks, what are you supposed to do when you
it's
lead?
screenplay left, screenplay right. I mean, that's just how they
But
feel.
but what is he supposed to do when you lead the country in drops
Yeah, no, I
and
don't
your
disagree.
quarterback's turning the ball over?
I don't
Like
disagree with that. I
I
guess
just don't understand. Like everyone say, "Oh, be more creative, be more."
they
If
hate
the guy
Bobo.
can't catch the ball on a 10-yard hitch, what
Well, I
makes you
think
think he's going to be
here's what I
explosive
will
on
say.
a creative play?
I will say I feel like he was more creative this week by doing some of those creative plays to get your tight ends involved with some of the underneath motions and all that stuff. Like he was a little more creative than he loves the damn tunnel screen to the receiver in the slot. He loves, so it's like I get what they're saying. They missed like a Todd Monken who came in there and was dynamic with the offense.
I get that, but I think it just becomes a numbers game when you're looking at what you have at receiver, what you've lost. I mean, Dylan Bell, didn't he miss this week? Dylan Bell's
No, he
missed the
played.
last 2 weeks.
He
Was it?
played.
Did he play?
Yeah, he played.
But he missed last week. Like, but once again, if your receivers can't drop the ball on simple routes, I don't care how creative you are, but you know, and then Carson just can't turn the ball over.
No,
That's
when he
just
stays
simple. It's
clean,
just to me, as simple as that.
when he stays clean, and then they can get some like I love Frazier, so he can run it, but it's
Yeah.
just still a tall order for a freshman who hadn't been in that situation. Plus, he's the only guy that there's no depth at that position if ETN's hurt.
Hmm.
So again,
But then
Georgia.
who's to say Kirby's not telling him, hey, keep it simple.
No,
Our
well,
defense is gonna win us this game.
that's 100%. That's Kirby Smart too. He's a conservative coach. He's
Yeah,
gonna play it to close. He's like, we can run the ball, we can do some of these things, and just play defense and whatever. Again, Georgia, when they play to their high capabilities, when they play great defense, which they will do,
Yeah.
They're able to run it a little bit, and Carson stays clean. Georgia is definitely a tough out and can beat anybody.
Yeah,
And
I
then
agree with that, but they haven't been to that standard.
no,
We always joke
they
about the
just
standard, but they haven't been to the standard at all
yeah,
this season.
they're not beating teams 42-7 every week where you just expect
Or
that.
just like you say, just looking clean and not turning the ball over. You can't leave teams in the game. You can't play around with Vandy and Mississippi State and Kentucky and teams
Right.
like that,
No, for sure. No, for sure.
But you know
I
what?
totally agree.
It's if people have been watching, that's across the country. There
No, I
to
was about to
me,
say it's that is 100% true. Like again, we could break it down because we're done really with this game. We'll talk about the other games that was the takeaways from this week. You're 100% right. Oregon, has finally caught up. Like they've been playing 8 straight games. They went to the new time zone again on the East Coast.
mhm.
You're playing against a Wisconsin team who's hasn't been good. They've been mediocre all
Oh,
year,
they just fired
and
Phil Luongo.
like so you're like literally in a barn burner banger with Oregon. Then you have the game where Ohio State messed around with Nebraska. Then you have there's been a lot of games where teams they're in tough
No,
spots week in and week out.
even Texas against Arkansas.
No, again, prime example, like Texas, they had
They
opportunities in that game. They could have blew it open, and then they just didn't. They kind of
Yeah,
let
and
they kind of
Arkansas
let
had opportunities to take the lead
later
and
in that game, they
possibly
did.
win
It
it.
was Texas finally scored, or I think Arkansas held them to a field goal late in the beginning of the fourth quarter, and it put
Yeah,
them up. And then literally, I think it was like 20-3 at that point. So they were up. Okay, you're up 17, and then Arkansas just went right down the field like 80 yards
mhm,
and made it back to a 10-point game. So it's just like that. That was the moment where you got to get a stop and then go score again. And
yeah.
then it's 27-3. The
Well,
game's over, and you're not in this
and that's why I've
tight
been
game.
saying all year. It's like everybody keeps saying, "Oh, this team won't beat this team." Don't say that. You don't know that. You know how teams have been playing and you go on a neutral site, anything can happen. All it takes is one bounce of the ball, and that's truly more and more now than ever. Like I say, where it was 5-10 years ago, if you put a Boise on the field with a Georgia, or Ohio State, or Clemson, we already know the outcome of that game more than likely. But now you put a Boise State on the field with a Texas, who's to say? It comes down to what are your strengths and weaknesses. I mean, clearly we saw that against Boise versus Oregon this year when Genty had over 200 yards and they were able to put up 30 something points and they lost by 3. So that's why I say, like, you can't sit there and be like, oh, this team's going to beat we don't know until you play on the field.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Like I say, the problem that I have is like the schedule imbalance with like who you played and all that stuff. And like I say,
Well,
we could hash
I
that out. It's
mean,
just
it's not going to go away when you have 130 something teams.
yeah, like I say, hopefully they're going to fix it somehow, some way. To have a more of a balanced conference schedule, and then like we said
Yeah, that's
before, hopefully teams are going to start beefing up your out of conference to more. And like I say, that's what hopefully is in the future. But the we'll see when those things come to fruition. But
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
guess
mean,
the
like the Oregon game, I rewatched some of it, and it's just like DJ's little brother, Ugalangale, however you say his name, he
yeah,
balled out. He had what, 2 sacks and a pick to end the game.
yeah,
It shouldn't have to come to that. But I mean, even look at Kansas and BYU. BYU's been playing around like Miami has the last
yep.
several weeks and
And they
escaping.
finally found their way to
Yeah,
lose.
and now they're sitting in a spot they don't want to be sitting in. But you can't, like, as bad as Kansas has been this year, Kansas still has enough great athletes to beat a BYU.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
Kansas, dude, they were one of those teams that a lot of people thought
yep,
could, contend for the Big 12 because of the parts they had coming back.
yep,
They've been banged up, they've been injured, they,
yep. With
had the
Neil
rough go
Arnold
early.
and Neil Arnold and Daniels at quarterback.
Like I say, I'm telling you right now, Kansas
They,
they're
they,
on another mission for upset this week.
yeah,
So
they play
if
Colorado. Yeah,
I'm telling you, if Colorado don't come to play,
hmm
that is
which,
a spot, a tricky spot.
well, speaking of Colorado, they beat up on a Utah team that just doesn't have a quarterback.
Yeah, Utah's
And but that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go out there, you're supposed to handle business. And I think with Damian Lewis and Warren Sapp as the D-line coaches, for the most part, they've turned that defensive line around, and they're aggressive, and that front seven's been creating sacks. And Lode Holt at the offensive line coach position has got the offensive line to play better. It's still not great, but they're playing better to where they're giving Shador enough times to make big plays. And with all those skill guys they have, that's all he needs. He just needs enough time to get the ball off. And I mean, they hung 49 on a really good Utah defense.
Yeah, no, like I say, Utah, they're running into that like how the Gators, when you don't have any offense and you're just playing with fire, just trying to hold it at bay,
Yeah.
the dam eventually breaks, and like your defense is like, yeah, we can't stop this team anymore. Like it's
No.
we've held on for as long as we can,
Yeah.
and we're not scoring any points to even make it a ball game.
I mean,
And
dude, they started the game off with a pick in
yeah,
great territory, and they couldn't do anything with it. They had to
no,
settle for three.
yeah, no, they literally had to settle for field goals that whole first half,
Yeah.
and just never it got worse as the game went on. But here's the crazy thing that I just learned this morning. Did you know that obviously the big news last night was the fact that Boise now jumped into that 4 spot, so that
Hmm.
for them to have a bye. I didn't realize if you can get another G5 in there, and like you might not even get a Big 12 team in. Like, let's just did you know that there's no lock auto bid for Big 12
I
or
didn't know
AC or
that.
any of them?
I thought it was.
I thought there was too, but apparently,
So if
like,
Army
let's just
wins out, Army could get in.
right. And then you might not have no BYU. If like obviously you'd have to have Colorado and BYU. You'd have to have them lose. Like say Colorado loses this week to Kansas, say Arizona State knocks off whoever, and then somebody beats
Mhm.
Arizona State, and they like to where all of a sudden they kind of cannibalize each
Hey
other
man,
in the
I
last
have
2 weeks.
guess what? I have no problem with it because when you hear Joey Galloway saying crazy stuff on
Oh my
TV last
god,
night
bro,
about sitting
bro,
guys and whatnot, no, you
dude,
better not sit guys. You
you
better
sound
go
like
out there and
you
play.
sound like an idiot, Joey Galloway. Like we'll get into that later if you want
Yeah,
to, but
that
well,
was crazy. But
yeah, it was like I say last week. I think it was pretty chalky. Everybody kind of won that we thought would win, but obviously that was a big BYU going down, dropped them way out.
well,
They're
another
out now.
another two big ones to me is Tulane, Wax, and Navy. I mean,
Yeah,
we know Navy's been on the
yeah,
downcline,
Navy's
but
done.
if we're talking about another conference team, you think about it. If Tulane keeps winning and they beat an Army team that's in the top 15, could they jump a Big 12 team with a big
No,
win like that?
that's the question. The problem is you need Army to get that upset this week at
For
Notre
sure,
Dame.
for sure, for sure.
So
And that's what I was factoring in.
well,
If
like I say,
Army's still
those
undefeated,
basically Tulane and Army are the conversation for a
yep,
second G5.
yep,
And you'd have to have obviously those Big 12 losses, and then these teams would have to get some upsets or some wins.
yeah.
But it makes it for interesting talk for the last 2 weeks.
Oh
Because
yeah, 100%. And then the other one before we flip to this week, to me was you just said one of the teams, Arizona State, a team no one has talked about. We haven't been talking about at all this season, and they got a big win against K State, and now they control their destiny into getting into
yeah,
the Big 12 championship game because they play BYU this week. If
yep,
they beat BYU this week, I would assume they have the tiebreaker to get in. Um, so yeah, this is these last couple weeks, man. It's college football is going to be fun. So you just got to keep an eye out on the games we normally wouldn't watch. Kenny Dillingham's turned that team around, and I didn't think he would right away, but hey, salute to
yeah,
them.
no, yeah. If they beat BYU and Colorado wins, you're looking at an Arizona State Colorado Big 12 championship game. Because
Potentially, we
yeah,
still
yeah,
got
because
one more
BYU,
week, but
yeah,
potentially, yeah,
yeah, Arizona. That's what I'm saying. Arizona State's got BYU this week, which obviously that's huge implications for them.
hmm,
And then they go to their arch rival the final week at Arizona.
yep,
But yeah, no, it's like I say, it's going to sort itself out. It usually does. The arguments are coming. We'll get into the arguments of who should be in, who should be out, and are we good with it, and all that stuff. But I guess jumping on like to this week, we'll go ahead and go to your Canes since they should have a win against Wake Forest, and you know, I think that Miami is good to have that bye week, kind of reset. Wake Forest is probably a good opponent to come out of there just so you can kind of get your stuff right again. Get out there. Like I say, defensively, I want to see the defense come out and play with some authority and shut down Wake Forest offense. And
yeah,
hopefully Cam Ward does what Cam Ward does, and you run the ball like you've been doing on offense. But I
yeah.
don't think I don't, I don't think I
It'll
don't
be.
think Wake Forest poses as much of a
I mean,
threat.
we're getting a couple guys back. Not sure if they're going to play this week. Mario said they may or may not with Ryan Rodriguez at What an offensive lineman and Damari Brown possibly coming back as well. Then Elijah Austin coming back at the defensive end position that we totally need for the stretch run. The only thing that Wake brings problems with is that slow mesh offense that they run, where they're basically the quarterback and the running back are like walking when they snap the ball, and they're doing that slow mesh where you're not sure if he's going to keep it, throw it, or whatever. But it's just longer than what most teams do. But
Hank Bachmeier.
yeah, but hopefully the Canes come out on fire. I mean, you got everything to play for. Like, go LSU this week, Miami. You win the next two, you're in the ACC championship game. I think the offense is going to be fine. They're going to recalibrate. It was just a bad offensive performance last week for the standard of what this season's been. When you can't convert on third down, you couldn't convert on fourth down, where you were like 1-3 on fourth down, and I think they were like 2-10 or 3-10 on third down. So this week, can they get on the field and can they run the score up? And can the defense make enough plays the whole Wake under 20 points? They should be able to win this game, but stranger things have happened. We know the Miami Blues coming off the bye week, but I would assume with this group, it's a different group, especially led by Cam Ward. And Cam still somehow he fell out of the Heisman race. If you listen to everyone talk this weekend,
he's not even being talked about. It's crazy.
It's fine. Yeah, it's kind of hilarious to me.
You lose the game and then you're off, and so not showing. It's like you're out of sight, out of mind.
I mean,
for sure.
I think the guy in Colorado is just getting talked about because he plays 150 snaps a game, but that's just me. But yeah, I mean, if Cam comes out, I think he's 5 TDs away from setting the record for most TDs for Power 4, I believe it is. I mean, even Restrepo still chasing some records as well. I mean, they're not playing for records, but I'm just saying that's what's coming up the next couple of weeks. And if the offense just comes out and play, I think they're going to win. 24, we'll see. I don't even care about the 24. Get the W.
Yeah, no, like I say, I think you wax Wake Forest. Like I said, anytime Clemson beat the hell out of them, Ole Miss beat the hell out of them. The good teams really buried them. Colorado or Cal and North Carolina beat them the last 2 weeks. They've got 4 wins on the year.
Just don't play around. That's been Miami's MO the last 5-6 weeks.
Go put a number on them. You know what I'm saying? Get that.
And then the committee will start looking at you differently as well. If they're like, all right, this team is reset. They're not letting the team hang around with them past halftime, which we know they should win. They should beat, and just handle business.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I think the tricky game is next week, Syracuse. So get past this one, and then Kyle McCord can throw 5 picks or throw 5 touchdowns. Who knows what the hell you're going to get? But just get Wake Forest, and then we'll talk about Kyle McCord next week.
Exactly.
But the game I can't wait for, though, has got to be the other game of the weekend, man. The battle of the 1 and 9s. What do we think about the Charleston Southern?
Oh, man.
The Fighting Charleston Southerns.
This is the only prediction I got.
Tallahassee.
If they,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I know what you're about to say. The whole scoring more than 20. What is it?
Yes, exactly.
Neither one of them has done that.
I know.
So it's
whoever scores 24 wins the game.
Yeah, man. Like I say, 1 and 10 Charleston Southern versus 1 and 9 Florida State. Like,
you want to say Florida State's going to win this game. But
Florida State's going to win. I'm 100% confident.
You're 100% confident.
100%. Just win the game. Yeah. I'm
90% confident.
There's not even a spread for the game. You know what I'm saying? It's not even a bettable game.
I'm 90% confident they're going to win. I just think Florida State get over 24 points, win the game, be happy that you're 2 and 9.
Yeah. No, I would. They're going to beat Charleston Southern.
Mike doesn't need any more bad news, man.
I know. I can't believe the dude went on the RG3 podcast. It was kind of, I didn't watch it, but I saw some clips of it.
Yeah, I saw it.
I'm like, this is
cringe.
This is weird. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
At 1 and 9 at Florida State, you shouldn't be on any podcast.
Yeah. So he was on a podcast. Like I say, Florida State.
I mean, he's sponge. It's damage control. He's out there trying to damage control, trying to keep his class together, trying to tell transfer guys, it's not for me and you. It's for, coaches, I'm still positive. I need to hire coaches. I need guys in here. That's what it's for.
Yeah, no, I agree. Terrible season for the Noles. Congratulations on your win against Charleston Southern. We'll see you next week in Tallahassee. But all right, the Gators Biggest game probably of the weekend for us in the SEC. I just great, like I said, great buzz going into coming out of last
Mhm.
weekend. Great buzz going into this weekend. Like, okay, do we got a shot? Can we do what we did to Ole Miss? What we did to LSU? Can we get after the quarterback? Can we get after Jackson Dart? Make them make some mistakes.
I
I just
I think Ole Miss has been on a mission, man.
yeah, I
Ever since
agree. Like
that second loss, they've been on a mission.
yeah, it's weird because Ole Miss, going back to like listening to Greg McElroy, who's called a couple of their games, say, watching them, they've got one of the top three best rosters in the country. It's just
I
like,
wouldn't disagree
how
with
did
that.
they, have that letdown of a game against Kentucky, and then they led the whole time against LSU and lost on the overtime play to Kyron Lacy in the end
It's the
zone.
offense. I
Yeah.
put all of that on the offense because if you look at their numbers for the most part for the year, defensively, they haven't
Oh,
really given up a bunch
dude,
of points.
defensively, they are top 10 in every category. Like they
Yeah.
are lights out
Mhm.
on defense. Like Ole Miss defense is for real.
Like you said, that
So
front four, man. That front four
that's what I'm saying.
with
They don't
Nolan
have
and
to
Princely.
generate pressure with
No,
bringing more guys, which is going to be a problem. Nobody's been able to run the ball on them. So that, like I say, that poses major issues for Florida. I don't think
especially that's what
it,
what Florida's been wanting to do the last couple of
yeah,
weeks is run the football more.
what's the thing that's going to keep you? Guess what? Having DJ Lagway gives us a shot now. We're playing defensively better. I just don't think it's going to be enough to win the game. Like, can we
No,
pull the upset? Sure, anything's possible.
yeah,
But
and Trey Harris is back, I believe, this
no,
week.
that's what I'm saying. They've got one of the best receiving corps in the country. Like I
That's where
say,
that young secondary is going to be tested this week,
no,
and
it is because they're
they still could run the football with Henry Parrish.
well. That's the one thing that they haven't done really well is they haven't really run the ball well.
I think for their standard, they run it enough in the games they've won. They've been able to run the football
Yeah.
enough. The games they've lost, I don't think they've done a great job of trying to run the football.
Well, on the flip side too, the Kentucky game, Jackson Dart didn't have a great game, and then
No,
what's wild was looking at it. That was Vandergrift's best game as a quarterback.
yeah,
That's where you would think, okay, they run the ball, play defense. No, Vandergrift actually played well throwing the football that day, and
but I
then
think he was able to move too to get out of the pocket to extend plays.
right, like I say, so the best case scenario, Florida, if DJ can hit some of those big shots that he's done, that can keep him honest, and maybe we can run the ball a little bit, and who knows, create a turnover. Like I say, I just want him to be competitive, man. Just be competitive in the
Yeah,
game. Don't get blown out. But like I say, there's
I
there's
think
the
the kid
capability.
but like we both said, I think the kids are going to show up and play, and sometimes that's what the great thing about having young freshmen and sophomores. They don't get the full effect of what's going on. They're just out there just trying to eat. They're just trying
Yeah,
out to be out
I,
there
I
to make
wish, I
plays and
wish,
what.
I wish this was a night game. I hate that it's at noon. Just for atmosphere purposes, it's just like, come on, let's, but I guess Alabama, Oklahoma is the night game.
I
But
mean, at the end of the day, Florida has to uphold their end of the bargain for it to be a night game.
no, for sure. Like I say, you got to have two. I mean, but Oklahoma, Alabama, it's about the same.
I mean, they
But
probably
I mean,
flipped the coin.
that's what I'm saying. They picked the schedule, 2-3 weeks ago, so that was before we beat
Yeah.
LSU and before whatever. But I just don't. I think Florida can hang in the game maybe for a little while, but I think eventually Ole
Do you
Miss
think Ole
wins
Miss
by two
covers
scores. Yeah,
two
I think
scores?
they win by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I
I
could
just
see that.
don't think. I just the
Just
only
don't let it get
way.
ugly.
Yeah, for sure.
Just
You lose by.
continue to get the rusher quarterback. Maybe because I mean, Ole Miss does have a tendency to put a little 4 and 5 wide out. Go 4 wide with a back. You would hope that the front four would get some pressure. How does that affect Big Dez being on the field with that up tempo style? Because he is technically your run stuffer. Do you keep him on the field? Just I'm curious to see schematically how do they try to slow down this Ole Miss offense that could be high octane at times and they could be sputtering out at times. But I
Yeah,
think
it's.
Jackson Darks, I think he's on a mission, man. I really think
Oh, he's playing good
after that
ball.
second loss, Lane's got those guys fired up, and
Well, even like I like shit. Even if something were to happen, like if Dart got hurt, they got Austin Simmons who can come in and run that offense just as well.
yeah,
So they've got a lot of firepower. It's
Yeah.
just what you're going to need is you're going to need a special day from DJ hitting some of those balls downfield to Badger and DK, and being able
Just
to
create
maybe
enough
create some of the run,
turnovers and
and
create
then
enough
and then
3 and outs.
and then can you create some turnovers? But on the flip side of that, Ole Miss's defense is so good. Florida this week is going to have to convert on third down to keep the defense off the field and
Yeah.
extend some drives, which is something that's what's so weird about the Florida's offense. It feels like in some of these games is it's been so boom or bust where they hit the big play and then they have a short drive because they score in 3 plays to where they don't have that long extended drive to get some methodical, run pass,
Yeah.
keep your defense on the field off the field and then, get a touchdown. They literally score in bunches and waves on like 40-yard touchdown passes. And you're like, okay, well, damn, we're back on defense, so they got to get some, they got to get some first downs. Well, they got to get stops, but they got to get first downs to extend
Well,
drives too.
the offense, yeah. I think and then on the Ole Miss side where they put you in such a bind is they're going to drop some on your head deep down the field.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
And then when you're worried about deep down the field, they have that tight end,
Well,
Pigsnarl, whatever his name is. He's in the middle of the field eating, and then like you say, you still got the running game.
No, well, I can say what it's got to be is it's got to be you play your philosophy of bend but don't break. Don't give up the big touchdown play. If you give up the big play, get them in at least the red zone to where things are tighter, things are more difficult. Exactly. You're gonna have to do that and maybe force.
I mean, that's what Kentucky did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what Kentucky did against Ole Miss. But I think that was still an Ole Miss offense trying to figure itself out.
For sure. That was way early.
Going into conference play. And and they figured it out. Tennessee offense hasn't figured it out. Just like South Carolina's offense has kind of figured it out. And who's figuring it out going into this latter part of the year? And like I say, Florida has figured it out to a point of what their style of ball is. Their style of ball is we're going to bend but don't break. We're going to run the football, let DJ take some shots, but we're also going to keep, like you say, move the chains.
Yeah, no, like I say, it sucks because it took this long to know that. I mean, here's the thing: Mertz got hurt. I still think we'd have been doing a flip flop situation if Mertz would still be in there. If we would have known, if DJ would have played against Georgia, could we have pulled that upset? Who knows? Could the game have looked different at Texas? Would we not got blown out? Probably that. We probably would have still lost the game. That's kind of what I'm feeling. Like the Texas game, like going with Warner, I knew we had no shot. If DJ was fully healthy going to Austin, I still would have picked Texas. I still think Texas would have covered a 2-touchdown spread.
Yeah,
but the game might have looked different.
It wouldn't have been 42-0 at half.
Right, exactly. So what I'm hoping is DJ can hit some big plays, keep some of that momentum wave going, and like I say, just make it a game, and at least just like the thing has changed where Florida is like, okay, we actually have a freaking quarterback.
Well, and that's where
it shows.
I know you hate it, and the rest of the world hates it. If they just say they get the loss this week, that's why next week, if they get that win, those 13 other practices going into a bowl game are so
for sure. I totally agree with that.
Especially for the situation Florida's in right now, they need those 13 other practices. Even if that means just giving even more younger guys, getting a Mizell, Andy Jean, and those guys on the field.
Like I say, probably even at 6-6 now with the whole playoff now, they probably get like the Gator Bowl, which would be a good game, and then they play.
That's not a bad spot to be in. That's like a home game.
That's what I'm saying. So
that's what I'm saying. Those 13.
I guarantee the Gator Bowl is probably like get that one more win so we can get you here.
Oh yeah, and then you play against a what? Probably
Iowa or something. Iowa,
more than likely Iowa or someone in the middle of the pack of the big.
Could do, or I think they also have ACC, so you can maybe get like Florida Clemson. How about that?
Yeah, that'll sell out.
That would be a sellout.
I don't know. I think Carolina probably would get that Gator Bowl spot.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But you know what? I don't know where they fit in the pecking order, like as far as like the old Citrus Bowl and Outback and all. I don't know who gets the first pick.
I think the Gator Bowl gets right after the Peach Bowl. They're still up there. They're just not all the way up there, but I think they're the better. The Gator Bowl is still the better.
Yeah, Carolina's definitely going to get one of those top tier.
From the Gator Bowl, I'd love to have Carolina right now.
Yeah, for sure. But all right, well, Obviously, the other huge game, major implications, but they need to sit their quarterback, according to Joey Galloway, is the Indiana Hoosiers. Hey,
That
guys,
was
here's Kirk
listen,
Cignetti.
dude.
Kirk Cignetti just called the team up. Hey, guys, boys, we're 10
We're
and
sitting
0.
O'Rourke.
I came here, and I never thought we'd be in this position. We're number 5 in the country right now. We're going to the Horseshoe this weekend, but we're going to play the backup quarterback this weekend, man. We got to keep him healthy. We got to keep him safe so we don't lose them. So we'll take this loss. We'll just punt this game away, and we'll beat Purdue next week, and we're in the playoff. Let's go.
They're out.
Like,
They're
dude.
out. I think if they get their doors blown off with or without their quarterback, they're out.
Yeah, it's the argument. It's been the huge argument.
Yeah.
All kind of like coming down to this, and the argument of, is Indiana deserving all that? And here's the thing: Indiana's undefeated. We've talked about it before. We've clashed on it, debated it about the imbalance of who they played in the Big Ten versus who, like Ohio State's played in the Big Ten or whoever, and they're out of conference. They're 100 strength of schedule. Here's the thing: the question then becomes, what is a competitive game to where like you keep them in? So that's the big question is, okay, if they lose, 31-21, you're like, well, they played respectable. Indiana's a pretty good team. They should be in the top. They won't drop from 5 to 12, maybe, but
Probably
that's the argument. That's the argument we'll have, in the following weeks of who does what in the games. And here's the thing. I feel like these 3 teams, and we've discussed them. Texas, I'm throwing Texas in there too. Like Texas, Penn State, and Indiana, they haven't beaten anybody.
Yeah.
Like if you put the question mark over the logo and you don't know who, you put a blind resume up there, like all 3 of those, you'd be like, these 3 teams are in the top 12?
But listen, if Texas, just say, I don't who they have Kentucky this week.
They got
If
Kentucky
Texas
and they got
loses
A&M.
if they lose to A&M, they're out.
I put them out too because guess what?
You
I
can't
put them
have
at
that
the
late
bottom.
season loss.
Well, no, here's that. I agree with that. I'd have them at the bottom rung of all the 2-loss SEC teams. They'd be down at the bottom.
Yeah.
I put them behind Tennessee because guess what? At least Tennessee's got the Bama win,
Yep.
And Tennessee right now is on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I think if Texas is playing for their lives, and so here's the thing: if Penn State is like they're insulated, Penn State can't. They're good. Penn State literally gets the ability of not even having to play in the Big 12 game.
Here's
or the Big
here's
10
one
game.
for you, Sponge. What if Ohio State loses this week?
Yeah,
and they have 2 losses.
I still they have. I guess their best win would be Penn State, which is a top 3 team. So they've got a huge quality win, and they probably have the best, as we say now, the best loss to the number 1 team. So I would definitely keep Ohio State in. It's just Indiana would definitely be a lock now. So nothing would change. Nothing would change. I would still think I still put Ohio State in that same realm of those 2-loss SEC teams. What it comes down to me is, this is the big one now. Here we totally started talking. Let's break this game down. Who do you like, and what do you think is going to happen? Does Ohio State handle business? Does Indiana have any shot in this game? What do you think?
I think Indiana does have a shot in the game just because Ohio State hasn't been world beaters this year.
That's true.
And my guy has been turning the ball over, Will Howard. I still think it's an upgrade over Cal McCord.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's him or the play calling or are they holding him back? Because there are times where you're like, you probably have the best skill group in the country. Yeah. I think he probably has the best skill group in the country. And it just feels like they don't utilize them. But then when you look at the numbers, you're like, all right. Emeka had 90-something yards receiving. Jeremiah had 100 yards receiving. And then you look at the backs and you're like, Travion only had 50 yards rushing, and then Judkins only had like 35. And I think they need, as a duo, Ohio State needs to be at that 150 mark running the ball as a duo. Not just one, as a duo, 150 plus.
What's wild is both of them are Quinshon's averaging 6 yards a carry on the season, and Henderson's averaging 7. So like they're yards per carry.
Right times though.
Now I know
those numbers are probably inflated when they play Northern Illinois.
Yeah, it's again like that's what's crazy is like Quinshon has 700 plus yards, Trayvon Henderson has 662. Will Howard's thrown for almost 2,500 yards. Like, we got Jeremiah Smith.
But in the games that matter, when you look at the numbers, when the games that matter, you're kind of like, what's going on with the offense? Better yet, that defense That defense that's probably touted as one of the best Ohio State defenses in the last
Yeah.
several years hasn't really done anything.
No, and
So
like they
I'm curious. I'm curious to see the game. I think Indiana is going to keep it close, but somehow I think Ohio State will find a way to win just at home.
yeah, do they cover the 2 touchdowns?
I think so because I don't know if Indiana's ready for this moment. This is a
Yeah.
big moment for them.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest game in their history,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, your
the
coach just got an 8-year extension. Everyone's telling you shouldn't be in it. And I mean, I guess the best part about it is it's at a noon. So it's not like a ruckus crowd at 8 p.m. on
right.
Saturday.
Yeah, I think Ohio State, like you said, you look at the Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Emeka, the good tight end, and G. Scott. They got Brandon Ennis like as your 5th receiver. And then you got the 2 backs. Will Howard, can you play, complimentary ball, not turn it over? And,
Yeah.
like I say, the defense, it's been good, but it hasn't been like this, like,
No.
oh my God. Like, I think their defense was better last year,
Yeah.
and they've
What
added
was
like
so
a guy like Caleb Downs,
I
it's just
think at
crazy.
one point, I think what's our guy name in the NFL with the dreads? I had his name in my head. Defensive end. Play for the Saints now. Well, he had more sacks in his career than Tumiala and Sawyer have.
Right. Right.
That you're telling me these are 2 of your best
Chase Young.
defensive ends. Chase Young. Yeah, Chase Young. These are 2 of your best defensive ends you've had in several years.
Yeah.
And they are non-existent when it comes down to it. They'll make a big tackle
Oh,
here and there.
I think obviously the game that kind of like where we were like questioning was how Oregon was able to move the ball up and down the
Yeah.
field. Not obviously that's one of the best offenses in the country,
Yeah,
but
and Indiana had a week off. How do they prepare and come in with
that's the big thing. They had a bye, hopefully there's
Mhm.
not like a letdown or anything like that. But I don't know. I feel like Ohio State wins. I feel like Ohio State might get like the backdoor cover and,
Yeah.
win it like 41 to, 28 or something,
Yeah.
41-25, 4, something like that. Yeah, so I think they do. So then the next question will be, what do we do with Indiana? And like I said, we could hash that out. But let's talk about the other big time matchups that we got circled for this week before we get into like the committee talk and playoffs.
Yeah.
Obviously, I
Listen,
know you got some Big 12 games. We talked about
Big
them
12,
before, but
yeah.
I guess you got
BYU and Arizona State had
yeah.
Arizona State. How does BYU come back off of a loss? And how do they bounce back against Arizona State? Arizona State, do they stay hot? Do
Yeah.
they get in that Big 12 game? I
I
mean,
like ASU. I like ASU at home this week.
ASU's favored by 3.
Yeah. I like ASU at home this week for
Yeah.
sure.
The other one, Colorado going to Kansas. Like I said, Kansas's record is not the greatest, but when you have
It's not
dudes,
indicative of who they really are.
right? But they have I think it was just Jalen Daniels getting back into things. Missing most of last year, coming off an injury, and they still got Neal and they still got Lawrence Arnold at wide receiver. They still have enough guys on offense to put points on the board. Can they slow down that Colorado offense? And can that Colorado defensive line get after Daniels for the most part? This is a tough one. Colorado's favored by 2.5. I mean, I guess I would have to roll with Colorado this week, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas pulled the upset.
Yeah, I think Colorado's going to win just because I think they're playing at a high level right
Mhm.
now. Yes, Kansas had the big win last week. They're playing way different than they were early in the year. I don't know. I feel like Colorado's playing some good ball right now, and so that offense is what kind of rules the day for me. I think they
Yeah.
can kind of
And
outscore
you notice it's been
Kansas in a
quiet.
shootout type game. Yeah,
You
yeah, no,
notice it's been quiet coming out of Boulder. You
yeah.
see stuff here and there, but it wasn't it wasn't the
Well,
spectacle of
now,
what it was
yeah, now
last
it's
year.
like I say, now it's kind of like maybe Dion's got him like buckled down and like he's
Yeah,
not trying to
it's
have all
about
this.
business.
I mean, shit. I take it back. I showed Ricky. I mean, they had a freaking concert after the win last week in the.
No, they do that. They do that after every game.
I know. I'm just saying. So
Yeah,
it's like
they do that after every game.
that's still going. And I know he had Miss Peggy, the 100-year-old Colorado fan, come into the presser the other day. But no, it's been business as usual. Kind of for Colorado since that early part of the season, and this goes. I heard them. They had an argument on unnecessary roughness, and they were talking about the whole fact that Boise, overtook that spot to where that would normally be a Big 12 spot. So
Mhm.
the question was, Casey was like, she was on board with like Boise shouldn't have that fourth spot, and your boy Brandon Walker was like, he's absolutely okay with it. He thinks that the Mountain West is on par with the Big 12 this year, and he says that the Oregon loss has anything better than anybody in the Big 12. So he's like, I'm okay with Boise being in that 5 spot, the 4th spot. And so I don't necessarily agree with him that the Mountain West is
As a
on par
conference,
with.
no.
Yeah,
No, as a
like,
conference, I think, but Boise going to Oregon and playing against Oregon and losing by 3, which they probably should have won the game. That's just for another Power 4, you'd be like, whatever, that's just another game. But for a team like Boise, that's a quality game that they played.
yeah,
And they pretty much handled business, and then beating a top 25 UNLV team helps as
right.
well.
Well, I guess so. It goes to that Colorado thing of, okay, what's Colorado's best win? Who have they really beaten that's any good? They lost to K-State, who was ranked at the time. They've beaten up at the bottom half of the Big 12. I mean, again, you can only play what your schedule is, but
Yep.
that's the whole schedule imbalance part. They got lucky with the schedule. So they didn't have to play Iowa State. They don't have to play Arizona State. They play Arizona State in the conference game. But yeah, so that's where that's where it gets gray and tricky to be like, okay, they don't have to play BYU. So like they got away with beating up on the bums of the Big 12, and now they're here. So
And then their out of conference doesn't help either.
exactly, they got blazed by Nebraska, and then they played North Dakota State or whoever it was and somebody else.
They
But
probably should have. They could have. I won't say
week
should have.
one,
They could have lost that game.
yeah, no, they very well could have lost
That
week
was
one.
week 1.
Yeah, that was week 1, and they
Mm-hmm.
they got out of there with a win when it was
Yep.
way tighter than it probably should have been. But again, they got boat raced by Nebraska.
I feel like if they win out,
even K-State beat the hell out of them.
yep. If they win out, I think they're in. If they win out, they're in.
No, for sure. Well, I mean,
the committee's going to be sitting there like,
no, they're going to get
we really want to leave this team out with Coach Prime.
No,
like,
that's the thing.
That's where the marketing and the money comes in, and where they're going to say, we can't leave this guy out. This is going to be electric. Just even if they're in it for just 1 week.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, like I say, if they are, 10 wins in the next 2, that puts them at 10-2. They're going to play against either ASU, BYU, and the Big 12. They got to win those 3, and then they're in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They win the next 3. They're in the playoff.
Yeah, well, I honestly think whoever's going to win the Big 12 is obviously in the playoff, but it goes down to where now it's 100% a one big league. It's literally come down to where it's either going to be Colorado, BYU, or Arizona State, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think,
unless someone has they get tripped up and Iowa State somehow slips in, because
Iowa State
would losses.
They would be the only team that would benefit from somebody sneaking up. So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
There's four teams for that one spot for the Big 12 is basically they all get to kind of play each other, and we'll see it play out.
Like I say, if Colorado is sitting there, they're not getting passed up. They are not getting passed up.
At that point in time, they will be high enough ranked to where that whole Tulane Army second G5 argument, they won't. That's not going to be relevant.
I could see Colorado. I could see that's where that 4th SEC team may get bounced, possibly, depending on who the 4th SEC team is with 2 losses.
No, what I'm talking about is completely leaving the Big 12 out.
No. No. I know, but what I'm saying is, remember how we said everyone's been saying there's going to be 4 SEC teams?
Yeah.
I'm saying that back half, because if Army beats, I know we're talking.
Yeah, no. If
Colorado
Army
wins out, Colorado
Army runs. Yeah.
And Army wins the table, I think Army's in, because if you're going to beat the number 7 team in the country this week, and then you win your conference, which you're going to play a top 15, top 20,
the caveat to that would be, I would agree that Colorado's already going to be in, but then I say, okay, if you're going to put that second G5 team in, guess whose spot they take? Notre Dame. So
true.
I think you still get your 4 SEC,
true,
and your 4 Big Tens.
True. I wasn't factoring that in, but
Notre Dame. Yeah, Notre Dame's like a G5. Anyways.
Notre Dame loses, they're out.
They
have no quality.
Your 2 losses are to Army and Northern Illinois. Bye
with no real quality wins. Yeah,
their best win is
Texas
week
A&M,
1,
the A&M win,
and then I guess their second best win they're saying is Louisville.
Yeah,
but so like I say, I guess as far as this week goes, that would probably be it. There's a few interesting matchups. I know A&M people are tripping about their game Saturday. Like, could they be in for an upset special?
How are they only favored by 2.5?
That's what I'm saying. What's going on there?
Ain't nothing going on. I expect the A&M beat down.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's got to be stealing money right there. That's got to be
Yeah,
our lock of the week, right? I mean,
yeah, that yeah. When I
A&M
heard
at
that, I
A&M
was
at Jordan Hare 2.5-point favorites.
the
Like,
other the one scary one that might make everyone happy. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but this team was leading the country in fourth quarter points. Penn State going to mini.
no, that's a sure.
They're Penn
I would love.
State's not world beaters, and
Here's the thing. Well, that's the
Minnesota's a scrappy team.
yeah. That's a huge. I didn't even think about that one. You know,
Yeah,
to me, if Penn State loses that game and gives them their second loss, how would they be in? Like,
that's what I'm saying.
what's their
That's
best
why.
win? USC, a 5-loss USC
Yeah,
team. You
well,
know,
that's why I put it on my list, Sponge. I
no, that's a
think
good. No, that's a good one. I'd love that'd be a great upset.
I think Penn State should win the game, but
They
Minnesota
should.
is a scrappy team.
That's what I'm saying. Somehow Penn State's going to win that game, you know,
Yeah,
27-23, and they're going to win and be
yeah,
fine. But no, I think Alabama blows out Oklahoma. I know they probably thought that was going to be a great game here at the end of the year.
yeah. And then my last one, I the battle for the trophy. No, it's not a trophy. My bad. Not this one. Vandy and LSU. I was thinking Arkansas and LSU. How does LSU bounce back against a good Vandy team?
Yeah, that
And
like
they're
have
favored by 7.5.
they
And
completely thrown in the towel? You know, that's the big
yeah,
question.
and I think Vandy still they're searching for a better bowl game. They're trying to get to a better bowl game.
No, I agree. Like I say, Vandy.
They just give teams fits.
No, they do. Like I say, they you know, South Carolina took care of them a couple weeks ago. They still, you know, limit your possessions with the style they run on offense.
Yeah.
Um,
If somehow
like I say,
Diego could get that eighth year next year, watch out
he's
for
trying.
Vandy.
He's trying.
Yeah.
He's definitely trying to. I just let me see. I'm trying to pull it up here. Let's see. All right. So Vandy. Yeah, they basically they're coming off a bye because they had, or was that South Carolina game last weekend? That was last week. No, they're coming off a bye.
Yeah, they're coming off a bye.
Yeah, so
It's Missouri, South Carolina this past weekend.
yeah, yeah, that was a wild ending to that
That
too.
was crazy.
Um, yeah, it's what it's going to come down to me is how does LSU respond? Like, do they
Yeah.
just
That's the only reason
done?
why I have it
They,
on my list of
they
games to
mail it
watch.
in? Do they mail it
Yep.
in? You know, or
It does it how does this affect Brian Kelly? Like, does
yeah,
this if they lose to Vandy, are they looking to go in another direction or does he want to leave? Like, I don't think they're gonna fire him.
his buyout is stupid too, man.
Yeah. I don't think he's going anywhere, but the natives are restless in the boot.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, his
He
buyout
has
I think
not
is
lived up
Norvell
to
level.
he had
It's like 60
he
million.
yeah, he's not living up to what they want on the field and off the field, it seems like. What do
Yeah,
you think about that Underwood kid?
yeah.
Uh
I mean,
with
like
the
I
ten
said,
and a half mil supposedly,
from
allegedly from
Michigan,
Michigan. That's a lot of loot to turn down to go to
a lot.
LSU.
That's a lot
That's
of
a lot
money.
of money.
That's a lot of money.
If
Like,
if it's true. If it's true, it's hard for me to believe that he's going to turn that kind of money down.
yeah, I don't know. And like I say, that what's the wild part about like I've always said about recruiting and stuff is
You don't know
Nussmeyer
what
was the
stories
guy.
to believe.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like so Colin Hurley, the kid from Trinity, who I've coached
Mhm.
for the last 5 years, he was graduated early. So he was an early enrollee on top of being an
Yeah.
early year guy.
Yeah.
He's only like 17, 18 years old, and he's going through his redshirt freshman year at LSU. But again, they're already recruiting the guy past you. You know what I'm
And
saying? So like,
and if but you got to think too where Colin gets into the squeeze. If the report is true of 10.5 million and the kid still goes to LSU, that means LSU met them at a number that probably wasn't 10.5, but probably still 6.5, 7 potentially.
right?
And if you're paying a kid, he's probably going to be your starter day one.
Yeah, you would think
He's going to
so.
get every opportunity to
He's
be
going to
on that
be
field.
he's going to be like your DJ Lagway. And like I said, that's what they're
Yeah.
putting all these pressures on these freshman quarterback. I mean,
Yeah.
it's even DJ. It took a learning curve for him to get where he's at, and plus he's been banged up. So it's
Yeah.
not like he came in and was instantly like, all right, he's better than Graham Mertz. We got to play
Right.
him now.
Well, and like I say, that's why I think those 13 plus he gets the rehab and get a little healthy, and then that spring practice could be a great thing to leap into year 2 for him, year 4 for Billy. But at the same time, if they go 7-5 next year, is that still good enough to keep him?
Right? No, hell no. Like I say, that next year, like again, the way it's set up now, you should go 6-6. Like you said, get all those practices. You should
Mm-hmm.
now keep the core intact. You shouldn't have a lot of portal defects. We're going to have some guys leave. Obviously, you're going to every year.
That's
That's,
everyone.
that's the
Everyone's
nature of
going
the
to have
beast.
that. Yeah.
Exactly. So you better keep your core guys, not be like, what the hell? Why did Jaden Ball transfer? I'm just throwing him
Yeah.
out there. To where it's like these guys want to play for Billy. You're going to like Andy Jean. Like he might decide to transfer to Miami just because he hasn't played yet at Florida. He's an up and coming receiver, but you keep your core guys intact. You get this recruiting class in the top 20, top 25. You hit the portal hard as well. Go get the Arizona State transfer at wide receiver. Go get a lineman. Go get this guy or that guy, and improve your roster. And then you better win 9-10 games and be in that playoff talk hunt. Next year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if that's not the case, then it might be time to move on. But again, so let Billy be a naysayer to me. All right, prove me wrong. I don't know. I don't see it happening. But again, the only thing that keeps him true is the fact that like these kids are playing for him. Lagway looks like he's legit. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll just let it play out. Who knows?
And I guess the other thing is your top targets are probably potential playoff bound at the same time.
Right.
When you think of Lane and Signetti, and I'm just throwing names out there.
No, that's what I'm saying. Now it's turned into where, like I don't know like who the hell we'd even try to hire right now. So
exactly.
it's almost like we're stuck.
But
it is what it is.
And I think you're just stuck. Period. Until there's a new president.
I've been rooting for Billy. I have. I like him.
No, I know you have.
And it's I want him to be successful. So if it took all of this and now all of a sudden we can turn a leaf and then be competitive and be it talked in one of the top 5, top 6 teams in the SEC every year, let's freaking go. Like I don't want to restart. I really don't. So it's like, like let's keep it in
place. But
place.
week in and week out, when you see the same things over and over again.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like
that's the problem that makes any fan mad.
Well, that's where like this week I want to see what I've seen the last couple of weeks when we've had Lagway in there, not the Yale quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Right. I want to see. So what I'm expecting. Warner. No, Adrian Warner.
I don't know his name. I was just curious because you keep saying the Yale quarterback.
That's all he gets from me. He don't get nothing else. The Yale kid, but I think it's Adrian
Warner.
Smart. Adrian Warner,
pretty smart
out
kid.
Out of Orlando. But like I said, we'll
hedge
see.
fund. You should just start calling him hedge fund.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what he's going to be after his stint in the orange and blue. He's probably going to be a hedge fund guy.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, let's hop into this before we end it up here. We'll college football rankings. Not a big surprise, and I'm good with it right now because again, we just talked about a little bit how I think it's going to play out. The question is the pecking order, in my opinion, of the SEC teams. What is Texas? What happens to Texas if they don't beat A&M? Again, I think Texas, if they lose to A&M, they should be out. I think if Indiana loses, how do they lose to Indiana? And technically, they could probably be out too, because then you're arguing. This goes back to my argument that we've had before. If you're arguing about a 1-loss Indiana team versus a 2-loss Tennessee or a Georgia, I'm with the SEC bias. I'm the homer of that. Like, I feel like what they've done with their 1-loss differential is they've beaten some better teams that have Indiana hadn't even sniffed on the schedule, to whereas, okay, your 1 loss is to Ohio State, but you didn't win against anybody worth a damn. So when the schedule, after we finish the final 2 games here, we'll see where they if they lose to Ohio State, they drop down to 9, 10, 11, 12. They're going to be in that back bottom half. So then it comes down to the resume, in my opinion. So that's where I ask you, would you take that 2-loss Tennessee team over a 1-loss Indiana?
I think it just depends on it. I hate to put it all on one game, but let's see what Indiana. Let's see what
Yeah,
Indiana
no,
looks like
that's what
this
I'm
week.
saying. Again, that's what I'm saying. I don't even want to argue about it or debate you this
Yeah.
week, buddy.
No, no, no,
We're
no.
not
I
going
know, I know,
to.
I know. I'm just saying. Let's see. I just want to see what Indiana looks like, and even if, just say they lose a heartbreaker, do they fumble the bag against Purdue next week? They shouldn't,
Yeah,
but
Purdue's terrible.
it's potentially, you know how a letdown can lead into the
Yeah,
next week.
Purdue's awful,
I mean,
dog.
just looking
If they
at
were playing like
this,
if they were playing like a Minnesota or Illinois
yeah,
or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, Purdue is
Still,
terrible.
though, you still got to worry about the letdown. Um, let's see how they play this week. Because like looking at my 12, obviously Oregon's won. They got UW. That's all they have left
Yeah,
in the Big Ten. More
yeah,
likely, even if they lose to
yeah.
UW,
They're in. Oh,
they're still in.
oh yeah, oh
So
yeah.
I
They're
think
definitely.
they're
Yeah.
in regardless. Ohio State,
Mhm.
if they lose to Indiana, there's an
You
argument that,
still got the rival game, and
yeah, and you still got the rival game. You still have the argument that they may be out. I potentially. It it
I
depends
think
on who
I
those
think they're
SEC teams are
yeah, I think
at the
they're
bottom.
insulated. I think Ohio State's insulated enough to where they won't drop past,
Right.
and they still
We'll
have.
see.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a great. That'll be a great argument. A
Hmm.
two-loss Big Ten Ohio State versus a two-loss Tennessee. I'll just use Tennessee as an example.
And Tennessee probably has the better win.
Yeah, they beat Bama, or they beat Bama, and
Yeah.
they have some good losses too, as we would say.
Let's not talk about such
The
thing as
good
good
loss
losses.
syndrome.
I hate talking about that. So then you got Texas. You got UK, TAMU, and potentially the SEC championship game. If they lose to A&M, I think they're out because they have
Yeah,
no weight. They have no weight to stay in.
yeah, they haven't beaten anybody.
I rather
They're
Tennessee sneak back in than a
yeah,
Texas.
yes, I
And it
would
sucks
too.
to say that
Uh,
about the number 3 team in the country.
yeah, it just so
But
happens that again, that's that I totally agree with you on that
yeah,
because like Texas's best win is technically Vandy. Like
exactly.
who's killing like the Indiana argument and even Texas is Michigan sucks. You
Yep.
know, that was a big game to where you're like, Michigan, baby. Like Ohio State can't even bank on Michigan if they were in
Yeah.
a precarious
Exactly.
situation. So
So
like,
yeah, I'll hop over Indiana. We talked about Indiana. Then you got Penn State. Penn State has Minnesota and Maryland left. You would think Penn State would beat those two teams,
yeah, they should
but
beat them.
they should beat them. But we'll see. If they lose one, they're potentially out because they already have one
Oh yeah.
loss.
Oh yeah.
Because
If Penn State loses,
have
if Penn State
no,
loses one, if Penn State loses one of those two, forget about it. They're out.
yeah, because they have no leg to stand on. Then you got Notre Dame. They got Army and USC. If they win those two, they're in. If they lose one of them, they're out.
Exactly. 100%.
So Miami, obviously, Wake and Syracuse. We already know
You
that
went out. Yeah,
situation.
you went out, you're in.
Yeah. Ole Miss, they got Florida in the Egg Bowl. I think Ole Miss is in just because they just had a big win
Yeah,
against Georgia.
like I say, if Florida beats Ole Miss, they're out. I mean, it's just
Yes, 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 yes. If Ole Miss loses one more, they're out.
yeah,
Even if they lose,
yeah.
even if somehow they get an SEC championship game and they lose, they're out.
You think so? See
UGA,
that's
same
that's the
thing.
question. That's the question I wanted to get to you too. Um,
The loser
Go
of the
ahead, finish
conference
up.
championship
Yeah,
games.
we'll come back to that.
Okay. Then you got Georgia. Obviously, they're going to beat UMass, and
And Georgia
they're going
Tech.
to play a pesky Georgia Tech team. Like they should beat Georgia Tech, but if you look at what Georgia Tech has done to Georgia the last 2 years since Brent Key's been there, it's actually been a closer game than people
No, it
think
has.
they've been.
It has. No, it
But
totally
they
has.
should beat, and it all goes back to, does Carson turn the ball over? Georgia has one more loss. I think they're out.
Oh hell yes.
SMU has UVA and Cal, two teams you would think they should beat. The UVA team is kind of a pesky team. And then the ACC championship game, and then you got Boise with Wyoming and Oregon State. I don't see Boise losing. And
No.
then they'll probably have a rematch against UNLV, is it? Oh, I just had it up. I can't remember
Mountain West.
the Mountain West standings. But yeah, I mean, you want to say they're not going to lose?
I wouldn't think no.
West.
They're going to win.
So they got
I'm just
Colorado. Colorado State is undefeated in the conference. So they would either play Colorado State or UNLV. That would be their conference championship game. And then outside looking in, I got Tennessee. They got UTEP Vandy. BYU has ASU in Houston. Texas A&M has Auburn, Texas. Colorado has KU and Oklahoma State, I still have Clemson in there because if they could beat South Carolina, that's a win that could vault them back into the
No,
bottom half of it. And Army, obviously, if Army wins out, I can see them getting in.
yeah, if they beat Notre Dame, beat Navy, that
And Tulane.
we'll have that discussion. Yeah, if they win that
Yeah, they got to
big
no.
conference championship.
Army has to win out. They have to win the next 4.
Yeah,
They're already in the conference championship game versus Tulane. They have to win out. What do you think about
yeah.
my Clemson? If Carolina, I'm not saying they're in. I'm just saying if they get a good win against a
If
Carolina team,
Clemson, the way Clemson can get back, I think they have to win the ACC.
well, they need Miami to lose one.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's because is there any way they can get
They're
in the title game?
they're in the clubhouse. They're done. Nope. If Miami and SMU went out, those are the
Yeah, what I'm saying is would they need like a
Miami has.
Cal? If Cal beats SMU, could they get in the game?
Then it goes down to tiebreakers. But I know if Miami wins, they're in.
No, I know that. I know that.
No, I'm just saying. I think it goes to common opponents next, and then after common opponents, your opponents in conference win percentage.
Yeah, see, so Clemson, they're 7-1. So
Yeah, they're done. They're done in the ACC. Their ACC
no, I know.
schedule is
Oh,
over.
because even if SMU drops one, they still got the head-to-head and one loss.
Yeah.
Yeah, so SMU,
They're playing with house money.
that's what I'm saying. That's a lock. Like, SMU would have to
Unless
lose
they
both
lose the
games.
next 2. Unless they
That's what I'm
lose
saying.
both games. Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So, yeah, Clemson's pretty much done. So, like, yeah, if they beat South Carolina and basically they're 10-2, I got a hard time getting in that discussion. I mean, like I say, that would be a debate, but I don't have anything. I don't have a leg to stand on.
I'm just saying.
Like, what's their
Don't
best
argue.
win?
Don't argue me. Don't argue with me about South Carolina being hot and being a good team because that was part of one of your arguments the other week.
South Carolina would never get in, is what I'm saying. I said they're hot.
No. I'm not saying South Carolina gets in. I'm talking about if Clemson beats South Carolina.
Yeah,
that would be a quality win.
That is a great win. That's their best
that's
win.
What I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying. It's a quality win that could put you on the fringe. I'm not saying that puts them in. I'm saying it puts them on the fringe of if chaos happens on that back half of just say 10 through 12.
No, for sure. Like definitely can be debated upon for sure. I definitely agree with that.
No, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're in.
Yeah, I just like 10-2. Your best win is against South Carolina, who's like the mid-level teams now when it comes to the rankings of the SEC. Like they would have needed another win, is what I'm saying.
I get that, but I can't hear everybody talking about how great South Carolina's been, and they're talking about they should have beat LSU, which they probably should have, and whatnot, and how hot they are. But then a team beats them and gets a quality win, then it turns into
South Carolina. That is
that's just the SEC.
Either one. Whoever wins that game, that's a great win for either one of them.
No, I know
because Clemson's still a good, viable ACC team.
I'm just tired
South Carolina is the hot.
It just whatever works in. Not saying you in the favor of
the SEC bias.
Of course. Now, if South Carolina beats Clemson, then it turns into, oh my God, look at that win South Carolina has. They should be the 3-loss team that should get in.
Yeah, I'm not with that anymore. Like, especially with the way, like I say, looking at the way it's going to go, I don't think there's going to be. I think a lot of teams are going to be 1- and 2-loss teams. Like everybody's going to have. So now it goes back to my question.
Next year we'll talk about 3-loss team when they expand it to what 14 or 16 or whatever it is.
I don't know if they can expand next year, but I think if they do expand it, it'll go to 16.
I think it's 26. They may expand it.
Yeah, so I think it'll go to 16. I don't think they're going to go to 14.
What were you about to ask me?
What I was going to say is, and I think I've already said this before, and this is where we might have a disagreement or whatever, but I'm now to the tune of I'm on the Lane Kiffin train. If you go to that SEC championship game and you're basically you're a 2-loss team and you catch your 3rd loss on there, I don't think you should be punished to fall out of the top 12 because you had to go play in that game, to whereas a Penn State or Indiana, they just get to sit on the sideline and don't have to go play in these games.
I disagree. The reason why I disagree is because when you look at the SEC landscape with the 2-loss teams, Hey, they benefit of not playing in the championship game because, hey, Lane, the only reason why you're in is because of some stupid tiebreaker that it probably had to go down to the third or fourth metric of why you got in.
Yeah, I don't even know what the tiebreaker is, but again,
But I'm
I
just saying,
just
if there are
it,
six Sponge, if there are six SEC teams that just say
mhm,
10-2, right?
yeah,
And two of them get in. So you're telling me that just say I guess Tennessee would be that team outside looking in. If Ole Miss loses, you would still put Ole Miss over Tennessee for that last
with
spot?
3 losses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, because that's where Tennessee got the benefit of only having the 2 losses. Because if you flip it and say Tennessee goes in that game and they lose, they'd have the 3 losses. But
Right. And then I
it
would
goes
put Ole Miss in.
but I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna punish the team who has to go and play, the other
It's
top
just,
team.
dude, that's just what it is. If we
I
sit
just
here and keep talking about punishing teams for this and that, guess what? Your record is what your record is. At
I
the end of the
understand.
day,
But
at some
again,
point, you
so
have
what
to
I'm
put your
saying,
foot down and just say your record is what your record is.
I don't disagree with that. But
Now, if there were a bunch of 3-loss teams,
the problem is you're never gonna lose this game now. They're
I,
never gonna
I,
take it
I,
away.
I
So
get
like it makes too much money. But there's no way you can penalize that team who has to go play in that
if
game when another
if
team doesn't have to even do it.
if all those teams were 3 losses and then Ole Miss got their third loss, and they're in the mix for a third loss, I get it. But like I say, if you have 5 or 6 SEC teams that all have 2 losses, you're in because of a metric. That's why you're in that game, because of maybe a win you had or you won at home or whatever the hell the metrics are. So the other team should be punished not to get in the playoff because Ole Miss had a better metric and they just lost the game. So okay, Ole Miss gets to the SEC championship game and Texas
Shouldn't there be a
blows their
benefit?
doors off.
Shouldn't there be a benefit of making it to the, like, so basically there's no benefit to it, even if you lose.
Hold up. This is the guy I brought this up a couple weeks ago, and you told me there shouldn't be a benefit for making your conference championship game.
No, I never said that. It was more so that was when we were arguing about, is there a two bid team like the Big 12 playing like BYU and whoever they were playing. That's where I was like, no, I don't, because that's where I'm going back to the strength of schedule and who you've beaten and who you've played. Like, yes, you should get rewarded or you should be benefited, but you still have to have the strength of schedule that SEC teams are going to have,
Got it.
the good quality
I
wins.
knew I knew we were going to go back
But,
to that. I
but
knew
again,
we're always going to go back to that. It is. Let's not even get into it today because it's always going to be
yeah,
the
we'll argue about
SEC,
it. We'll
the
argue when
SEC,
we'll
the
argue when it
SEC.
happens. But I guarantee you that the loser is going to still get in. Is going to stay in. I guarantee you. Like, that's what I think the committee is going to do. I might be right. I might be wrong. We'll see what happens. You can have your opinion. I got mine. Like I say, we'll wait until it all materializes out, and we'll see whoever loses in that title game, whether it be a Ole Miss or a Georgia or
So if Ole
whoever.
Miss got blown out by Texas in the title game, you still going to put them in there?
Like I say, it's just like the Indiana thing. Let me see it happen. That might be a different story. Then I might not do that.
I
Then
just I just don't agree with it when you have a bunch of teams with 2 losses. If you have a bunch of teams sitting there, and like I say, just say if Texas gets in, Texas beats, they win their next 2 and they're in with 1 loss, and then you have 5. What is it right now? Is it 5 teams
5.
with 2 losses?
Yep. It'd be A&M would have 2 losses, Georgia would have 2 losses, Tennessee would have 2 losses, Bama would have 2 losses, Ole Miss would have 2 losses.
So then whoever gets in because of the metric,
Mm-hmm.
so the last team should be out, even though
I'm trying to
they're
think
in the
who's.
mix.
I know. I'm trying to think. So Texas would play. Would they play Georgia again?
Bama. I think Bama's in line to be into the conference championship game right now with the
Okay. So
LSU
like I
loss.
say, so you would have Texas, Bama in the title game, and if Texas were to beat Bama, I would still put Bama in there because basically that means A&M and Georgia and Tennessee, they all got the benefit by not having
Even
to go play
even
against
even
Texas.
though Tennessee beat Bama,
I know. Well, they all beat each other. They all have. When you look at their
even though head to
Georgia beat
head,
Tennessee,
that is a
Georgia beat
metric.
Tennessee, Georgia
That's a
beat Tennessee.
metric head to
I
head.
understand.
So you're
Well, like I
taking
say,
head to head out.
what you're arguing is you
So
might not
you're
be
taking
arguing
head,
those two teams.
yes or no,
You might not
yes
even
or
argue
no,
those two teams.
yes or no, you're taking head to head out. A 2 loss versus a 3 loss.
Everybody's beating each other is what I'm saying. So head to head would be out. Like they've all got good and bad wins.
So
Like
head to head, Tennessee beat Alabama.
yep,
Did they not?
it
So
did.
you're throwing that out the window.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't agree, but okay.
That's what I'm saying. Let this materialize out, then we can argue about it because it might not be going against Tennessee as the team to get knocked
I
out. Is what I'm
agree.
saying.
You brought it up. I'm just answering the
No,
question.
what I'm okay. So what I'm saying is we don't have to argue about it. I say a 3-loss SEC team champion is going to be in. You say they're going to be out.
You
That's
mean
it. We
loser.
don't have.
You mean loser.
That's one. Yeah, the 3-loss SEC loser of the championship game is still going to be in. You say no. I say yes. We'll see what happens.
I
Like
say no.
because it's going to happen. It's going to happen to
All I'm
somebody.
saying is if the argument is why are we playing head to head then? Because that is a metric.
I get that, but it gets thrown
And
out when you have so many
if you
different.
beat the team, if you beat the if you just say if you've beaten the loser of the SEC championship game in, you should be in. That's just no different of why Georgia didn't get in last year.
I
They
understand, but
lost to
what I'm
Alabama
saying is
because they
you
took
might
head to
not.
head.
What I'm saying is you might not be arguing about that. You might be
You
arguing
might
about.
not be,
What I'm saying
but
is okay. So then, if it comes down to Georgia, Bama, and Georgia, Bama beat them head to head.
yes.
Okay, so is Bama
I
in
would
there
say
with 3 losses?
then you have the head to head.
That's
That is a
what.
metric.
Okay, so that's what I'm.
That is a
That's what.
metric you use.
Okay, so
And
who's in?
I would be fine with that because then
Okay,
I
well,
could say head to head they've played each other.
yeah.
Do I like it? No, but you factor that in. You have to factor in
I
head to
don't.
head.
That's what
You
I
have
agree with
to.
that. So what I'm saying is my argument is we don't know who we're arguing
Right.
for who's in,
And
who's out. Like
with the scenario,
it could be down to this. It could literally be down to like, okay, Ole Miss or Georgia. Then like Ole Miss gets
all
that
I'm
third
saying
loss.
is, Sponge, you have to put that metric in as a
It is.
factor.
It is in there. It is in there.
You
So
just said
like
it wasn't in that
it,
case. You still
it's
would
get
take you have to go through your normal factors. If whoever loses the SEC championship game, right?
yeah.
You have to factor in who they played head to head,
No,
and then you still got to put those other metrics in. Me personally, as long as just say if it's Georgia, right? And Georgia lost, and they're the 3-loss team, and you're sitting there, and Bama is the last team in. I'm putting Alabama in because I'm going to sit there and say they played head to head. Alabama beat them. There's no more argument for me. Now, if it's reverse, then you can say,
well, I think what's going to happen is you're going to be it's trying to figure out the pecking because here's what it is.
no, I know.
SEC's getting 4 teams in. The Big Ten's more than likely getting 4 teams in. And then you're going to have your Big 12, ACC, and your G5, and then Notre Dame, unless they don't blow it. You know, as far as getting 5 teams in, you need, like you said, chaos. You would need, another G5 to take Notre Dame's spot, and then then you're talking complete chaos. But I think it's going to be 4. So then it comes down to what order. So, like I say, right now, the 4 that are in are in. It's Texas, Bama, Georgia, and Ole Miss. And I'm fine with that. So then it boils down
We're
to
saying today, but we also said if Texas loses Texas A&M, they're out.
right. So then a team would slide in. A team. So basically, somebody would take their spot. It would be either be A&M or Tennessee. So I'd probably take
I'd
Texas
say
A&M.
Tennessee. I probably would say Tennessee.
Well, like I say, what you're going
I
to have
think
is
Tennessee. I know, but I think Tennessee would have if if Texas A&M beats.
well now
Just say if they beat Texas,
they're in the game now.
that's probably a quality win. That's a
Like I
better
say,
quality win.
now they're in the SEC championship game. So now they
Right.
could get that third loss. Is what I'm saying. So
Right.
then you're
And then they'll be
arguing like,
out.
yeah.
I can reward you to a point. Now, if you
Well, like I
have 3
say,
losses, then I have to factor in all the other
I
teams.
don't. I think you should not in these
So now we're
situations.
separate. So now we're separating. So now we're separating conference championship games.
Yeah, it's stupid now. I hate it because it's dumb. Because here's the thing: the same thing goes for like the Big Ten. Like you should not be punished to a certain extent if you have the strength of schedule. Is what I'm saying. So going back to like your BYU argument, BYU, their 12-1, 11-1 is not the same as Ohio State or Tennessee or Georgia or
The reason
it's not.
why I hate that.
So then it goes to where I don't
The
care. I
reason
don't care
why
about
I
the
hate
records
that
anymore.
argument. The reason why I hate that argument. You don't determine your conference schedule. You don't determine your conference.
You're right.
Like
You don't.
there are
It's
134 teams, and guess what? Sometimes you're just asked out. That's
You're
just what
right.
it is. Just like in the NFL, you could have 4 teams from the same division, and guess what? The bottom team that might be just say 10-2. It happened to the Dolphins a couple of years ago. Guess what? Sometimes you're just asked out. You can't get
Yeah.
everybody in. That's just what it is. We can't put everybody in because you're telling me they're the best conference. How about this, SEC? Go have your own tournament then. You and the Big Ten,
Yeah.
go have your own tournament and then
That's
be
what it's
done with it.
that's what it's going to turn into. It is. But like I say,
Just go do it.
you
So
can't
if
tell
if
me.
if the other conference commissioners had balls, they would say, you know what? If this is what you guys want to do, you two go over there and play by yourselves, and we'll go do our own thing. And guess what? Whoever makes money because it's still football, and people are still going to watch the ACC, then the Pac-12, the Big 12, and whatever other mix you want. But these other conference commissioners don't have balls because they bow down to Greg Sankey and whoever the hell is running the Big Ten. That's all what it is.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't disagree. I would even be on the side of like a BYU or a Colorado if they were really like those teams just aren't on the level of those top 4 teams from the
We
either league.
watch the SEC. You can't keep rewarding them. I get it. You play in one of the better. How about this? How about we factor this in? Maybe the conference is down.
What conference? The SEC?
The SEC.
This is
Maybe
the
the
best it's
conference
ever
is
been.
down.
This is the best it's ever been, in my opinion.
Because of what? Parity, right? Because
No,
that's what you're telling me. Because
of
Vandy,
course.
because of Vandy beating out. How about this?
Maybe the Big 12 and SEC look the same.
I'm not saying that. I'm not comparing.
I'm just asking.
I'm saying compared to years past, maybe the conference is down when you have the other teams beating up on the big boys and those same teams going out to other conferences and losing. Maybe the SEC is down.
Do you believe that?
Maybe it is. It's not as the SEC is not as strong as it's been the last 10 years as a conference.
That's crazy. I think they're better than they've been the last the levels.
Because you're gonna tell me it's top to bottom, right? That means the big boys are doing what? Coming down to the rest of the pack. Are they not?
It's like you have like 4 really, really good teams, even 5, and then like your mid-tier teams. Like we're considering a 2-loss, like even Texas A&M or South Carolina, Missouri. Those are like mid-level teams, and like they're still good. Like your bottom feeder teams are like the Gators.
Now Missouri's a good level team.
They're mid. They've been mid all year. They're 7-3. Like they're like they're like 8th in the SEC.
What I'm saying is maybe the quality of play as a whole has come down, even though the conference is still good. I'm not disrespecting and saying the conference is not the best conference. I'm saying as a whole, the conference has come down. There, you can't argue that. It's there.
Where I don't agree with that is like a South Carolina team. Like put South Carolina in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is so top heavy this year that like after your top 4,
the Big Ten's always been top heavy.
I know that. So what I'm saying is, dude, South Carolina would probably win the freaking Big 12. You know, South Carolina would compete to win the ACC. It would be between you guys and it would be Miami, South Carolina this year in the ACC. Like, and they're like the 7th.
Don't know
if you're right.
If you don't do it on the field. You're right. Don't know if you do it on the field because if Clemson beats South Carolina next week, what's going to be the argument going to be?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, they caught South Carolina napping. I'm not going
to say that. I will give kudos.
Evolving and changing.
I will tip my cap to Clemson. Like it's not changing.
The SEC is down.
Are you kidding?
As a whole?
No, it's not.
All right.
When South Carolina is your like the 8th best team in the league, like that's not down.
So what does it say about the top teams in the league?
What do you mean? What does it say? They're all beating up on each other. That's what it's saying. They all had to play each other. A&M, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Bama, Ole Miss, South Carolina. All those teams played each other. So you're obviously going to collect 1 loss, and then each of them had to play each other again. So you're going to get a loss or 2 here or there. Like it's improbable. It's going to happen. That didn't happen in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's only played
when you have Georgia struggling against Kentucky.
Here we go, struggling against Kentucky. Like,
did they not win by 1? Did they not win by 1?
They didn't play.
There we go. There we go. There's always they won the game. Were they not down? Are they not down? Is Georgia not down this year?
Georgia's not up to the level of they've played in the last 4 years where they won
So
national
if
titles.
you're
I
not up, what's the
didn't deny
opposite of
that.
what is the opposite of up? What is the opposite of up?
It's down. So Georgia's
So
down.
Alabama
Georgia's
is Alabama up to the standard of what Alabama's been to the
like,
last
where
5
do you
years?
why do you expect them to be that good? They're in the top 10 in the country. They're one of the top 10 best teams. You expect them to be number one every year?
Somebody has to be in the top 10.
That
So,
just doesn't happen. That doesn't happen.
So is Alabama playing to the standard of Alabama?
They're not playing to the standard of being number one in the country, neither one of those two teams. But how freaking down do you have to be to go from number one to like number 5? Like that's crazy. And then when you add more teams in that are playing at a high level, like it's just like it's crazy to me that you think that the SEC is down, or that I would even call you an SEC hater, when it's just like it's the fact. They're the best this year. Now, are they going to win the national title? I don't know.
Did I not say the SEC? Did I say the SEC was the worst team, the conference?
I didn't say
Did
you
I
said
say
they were
that?
the worst.
What did I
say?
say?
You said that.
I said the SEC is still the best conference, but as a whole, the conference is down because the top teams are down comparative to what they are used to being the last 5 to 10 years. Is that not a fact?
What if they still
Is
win the
that
national
not?
title?
I just need you to say yes or no. Sponge, yes or no.
They're
yes
not
or
number
no.
one in the country. So what I'm saying is, like, where do you want them to be?
Why can't you just say yes or no? Why does it have to be this run-on sentence? Yes or no? Is it yes or no?
They're still the top teams in the country. They're top 5 teams in the country.
Can you say yes or no?
No. They're okay. They're still fine. Like they're going to be.
All right.
Here's a question for you. 2 weeks out, who you got to win the national title? An SEC team, Big Ten team, right now? Just stab it. Who you got? You have to pick a team. Just who you think's going to, out of those two, if it comes down to it, is it going to be Ohio State and Oregon, or is it going to be Alabama or Georgia or whoever?
Probably Ohio State, Oregon.
There you go. SEC hater. I'm just like,
no SEC. Who would you pick?
I would probably. I'd probably pick Bama to win the national title right now if they were to play, just because I think Milrose playing at a different level. But we're 8 weeks away from that type of thing. But do I think they'll play Oregon or Ohio State? Yeah. I mean, it's going to be one of those two. Put it that way.
You're always going to pick that. Dude, I'm going to just try my best to stop getting in these arguments with you, because you're always going to pick the SEC team. You can't take your the only conference that cares about their conference. The SEC is the only conference that cares about their conference. Seriously. Because if your team's down, you jump on the conference's bandwagon. The only conference that does that. No other conference does that. Because guess what? Because no other conference gives a shit about their other teams.
Yeah, it's probably because I have two teams.
Because no one roots for. How do you root for your rival?
Yeah, I don't root for Georgia.
Yeah, you do. For them. Yeah, you do. If Georgia played in the national championship game, you're rooting for them. You won't say it out loud, but as soon as they win, what do you say?
I never want Georgia to win the national title.
Okay. If Tennessee played in a national title game, you're going to say SEC. That is, if you root for your conference, you're rooting for your rival. However you want to put it, you're rooting for your rival.
When did I ever want Georgia to win the national title? The only team I root for is Bama. The only team I root for is Bama.
I never said you rooted for Georgia. I said if Georgia won the national title, you'd be like, I didn't want Georgia to win, but it's a win for the SEC.
Well, who wouldn't? You tout the conference because you play in the best league every year.
You think when Florida State won a national championship, I gave a damn because they played in the ACC?
Well, that's your freaking hated rival. Of course you're going to not want them to win. That's the whole argument. Like,
that's Michigan, the point I'm making. I'm not going to sit there and say, "Oh, ACC."
Well, that's because you've only won like two national titles in the last 20 years.
Okay, that's what the SEC conference does. Because guess what? Even if my team win, I could hop on. I could hitch my wagon to my conference and say, we play in the best conference.
Well, everybody does that, man. Nobody's rooting for it. After that happens, and then you're like, well, the SEC's won 20 national titles in the last 15 out of the last 20 years. You're like, we play in the best league. This is where the best balls play.
You see me rooting for Clemson.
Well, that's fine. You don't have to. I mean, like I said, I don't root for these teams at all either. But I mean, you're gonna tout it after it's said and done. You'd be like, well,
I get two shits.
The team. That's you. That's you, buddy. But the rest of the people out there,
my team didn't win. My team
gonna
didn't win, but my conference did.
yeah, they're gonna
So
tout
stupid.
the league they play in. It's
Dumbest
just
shit.
that's just
Dumbest shit ever.
I mean, like
That's
I
like
say,
me being a Bears fan. I'd be happy if the Packers won the division and won the Super
it's
Bowl because they play in the NFC North.
yeah,
That's the
that's just
dumbest shit ever.
that sounds asinine. Like I say, it's
Yeah, exactly.
nobody
Does it?
here's it does. Like
Oh,
again,
okay.
I don't root for any of these teams. Do you really think I want
That's
Georgia to
fun.
win the
I
national title?
never said you rooted for the teams. I'm just saying when they do win the national championship, your first thought is, oh, at least the SEC won. Don't act like you've never sent that
Yeah,
text
no,
and said, oh, the
1,000%.
SEC won.
I'm
So
definitely
that is like rooting for your rival because your rival won the championship.
it's not
It can't be both ways.
That's a
It
gray
can't be both ways.
area. I didn't just
It's
because
not gray. It's not
I
gray. It's not gray.
even when Georgia won those titles, I'm not happy that they won because my rival just won a national title. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, well, at least we're playing the best league.
Like
that.
See, and that's the SEC argument.
Two things
That's
can
the
be
SEC.
true. Two things
That is
can be
the
true at the same
SEC
time.
argument for everything. It's like, what's the workaround? We could come here to root for a SEC team. That's our workaround right there. We're not rooting for them, but they represent us.
Yeah, I mean, they do. I mean, the league is good. What can I say? What can I say?
I never said the league wasn't good. I said the league was down at the top. And if you go and look at the games, they're down because they're losing games they normally wouldn't lose. So if they're not up, they're down. They can't be left or right.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying. I get what you're saying. It's just
I don't think you do.
I do. They're just if you're in the top 10, if you're in the top 10 in the country, the top 5 in the country,
fun. Somebody has to be in the top 10.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the thing about numbers. Someone has to be ranked there.
Some teams are going to lose. You're right. So
that's how sports works.
Yep, you're right. And I still think as far as you're saying the SEC's down is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. A 3-loss SEC team should be in the playoff.
Yeah, because they had to go play in their conference championship game.
Play in the conference championship game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the argument was even before playing in the conference championship game. They had the violin out already. Hey, let's play our violin to get that 3rd loss.
It wasn't even that. It was more so in the last 10 years, the way that and it wasn't even this isn't even for an SEC team. This can be for anybody.
The committee did not give a shit after 4. Like they keep bringing up that metric about how there are 3-loss teams ranked from 5 to 13.
What I'm saying is
gave a shit about 5 to 13 the last.
This is where
how many years they did a top.
This is where the argument's better. Is these teams are better. They're 10-2. They're all 10-2. You know what I'm saying? So and it's not even all SEC. There's like plenty of ACC teams.
They could have 6 10-2 Big 12 teams, and they're still going to say the SEC is better.
Well, like I say, here's the big argument now. If we were in last year's metric, 4
Penn
teams
State would still be in.
Exactly. So you'd have 3. It'd be the Big 10 Invitational, and you'd be good with that?
It should have been the Pac-12 Invitational, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, they closed
the Pac-12 was the best conference last year.
I'm talking about this season. You just have Oregon in there this year.
I know, but you said last season. You said last season.
No, I said if we had last season's implementing for this year and only 4 teams got in, it'd be the Big 10 Invitational right now.
Yeah, I think it would work itself out.
You think so?
There's no way 3 Big 10 teams would have been in. There's no way, even if just say Indiana lost and
that's what I'm saying.
Ohio
so you're
State,
good.
Oregon and Ohio State.
You're good. You're good with Penn State 1-loss team getting in over like a 10-2 Georgia.
No, it's different when there's only 4.
I know.
It's different when there's only 4.
We're still arguing about a 1-loss versus a 2-loss because you put so much emphasis on losses.
Notre Dame probably would be in before Penn State because at least Notre Dame could say we beat Texas A&M, who's in the top.
Well,
20.
Not according to the rankings now, though.
Yeah, but I think they would slide them in. I think if they would, dude, don't act like the committee never like sat a team right there, and then by the end of the year they somehow jumped up above a team, and then they said, well, we looked at the win from week 1. Like, well, why didn't you factor in the week 1 win? Week 11 or 12.
Yeah.
It's a rating show. That's all it is. ESPN's loving it, and they want to have their thing every Tuesday night, so they could get ratings and people get up in arms. And like, prime example, I'm seeing Miami fans freaking out. And I'm like, if they win out, who cares? It doesn't matter what the rankings are. If Miami wins their next 3 games, hypothetically, they're in the playoff. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, don't lose. Like Rhett Lashley said, you win your next 3, you're in. Like, so I just don't get why people are up in arms when there's 3 weeks left.
I don't understand that either. Like I say, again,
Dude, people are dumb.
no, I don't like. Yeah, you control your own destiny. Both
Yeah,
of those teams, so just like Indiana, you control your own destiny. If you want to get in
100%.
for sure, win the game against Ohio State.
Yeah, if they win
If
and
Ohio
they
State
lose
doesn't
in
want to be looking
now if
on the outside
Indiana
looking in,
now if
they
Indiana
win.
wins, if Indiana wins out, just say they win the next 2 and then they lose in the Big Ten
Yeah,
championship game, they're in.
no, they're 100% in.
Yeah.
They'd only have one loss.
All I was saying with the 3-loss team of the SEC, it's hard for me to put a 3-loss SEC team when there's potentially 2 teams on the outside looking in with 2 losses, especially a team that you lost to head to head.
I know. Well, that's what I'm
I
saying.
can't do that.
I don't disagree with that. That's not going to be the argument, is what I'm saying. So it's going to come down to where, like I said before, if you're arguing about like Georgia and Bama getting in the last spot and Bama just
Then
collected their third loss.
you have to put possible. That's where it gets tricky, where you can
That's what I'm
say,
saying.
well,
Again,
I
like
would
I said,
put
there's no
Bama
reason to
in
argue about it because let it happen and then we can argue about
for
it after the
sure.
fact. I'm just saying, I
And then
think
why
that
do a podcast, Sponge?
I know you got to debate about it and argue
We
about
got to
it.
debate about it.
But like I say, this argument is the same one every week. So I didn't want to debate about it this week. I was trying to be in total agreement with you all the way until you said until you said the SEC was like a down year.
It is a down year.
And it's not a down year if you got
It is a down.
It's not a down year when you got 8 teams in the top 25. It's like from the top.
When haven't they had 8 teams in the top 25?
That's what I'm saying. So it's not a down year. It's a regular year. It's the same. It might be deeper, is what I'm saying.
What I'm saying, deeper. I say down. You say deeper. I say down.
I mean, they still got one team who's ranked number 3, and then everybody else is right there 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They got everybody's in the top 10.
All I'm saying is, if you look at the standards of the top teams of the conference, they are down.
Well, you would normally have an undefeated Georgia or undefeated Alabama. So if they've collected a loss or 2, they definitely aren't playing to the standard of where you want them to be at.
So they're down.
And
not just that, like Georgia has an argument because their losses to top tier teams.
So is Bama's.
Is Vandy a top tier team?
No, they're mid.
South Carolina, they could have lost. Like, they have not looked. Clearly, we know why. Nick Saban's not there. We know why. All I'm saying is, when you watch those teams, take out the numbers. When you watch them, they are not in the upper echelon of their conference of what they're used to being. You can't argue that with me that they are not. Georgia has
fine.
not looked like Georgia the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, they've been so you're right. They've been so dominating before. And here's the thing. I agree with that. But here's what's wild is I still think Georgia and Alabama, I'll even throw in there, we'll throw Texas in there too, but Texas still needs to be seen. Is like I can't wait to watch it materialize and play out because I would pick them to win. I would pick them to win the national title. It would be Ohio State and Oregon are the only detractors.
But all I'm saying is if those 3 teams played against any other team in the country, just say the top teams in other conferences on a neutral site, yes, you would pick them to win. But if they lost this year, you wouldn't be surprised. Like versus last year, if Georgia lost to anyone in the country outside of that one loss to Alabama, you'd be like, hey, what the hell's going on? What happened? But if they lost, just say to try and think of a team.
Indiana.
If they lost to Indiana, you would be like, how many times
Georgia sucks? Georgia sucks.
No, the first question would be like, how many times did Carson turn the ball over?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. You're making it seem like I'm talking about they dropped from number 1 to number 12 in the conference. I'm just saying, when you watch the top teams in the conference play, a lot of the season they haven't looked like an upper echelon team in the country. Like,
Yeah,
there's no arguing that.
it's been in waves. It's been in
There's
waves.
been like a 3-4 week.
One week they look really good and then they lose, and then
But
one week they
Bama
look
had
really
like
good.
3-4 weeks where they looked hell.
Yeah, they were sleepwalking. And again, I think that goes to, I think Milroe was hurt. I've already said that.
Here goes the other word, sleepwalking. I'm gonna have to get a SEC dictionary.
Yeah, sleepwalking.
I'm gonna have to start jotting down all the euphemisms.
I shouldn't have said sleepwalking. I said what I said. I think that Milroe got hurt in the at the end of the Bama game or whatever, or Vandy game, and then he didn't play well in the second half of that Vandy game, and then he didn't play. He didn't look like himself at Tennessee, or even the week before when they played South Carolina. But again, I won't call it sleepwalking. I'll say that and I don't even know this for sure. I could just be wrong.
I'm not disagreeing
but Milroe
I agree that Milroe he didn't look right.
Like I say,
but
Milroe
at the same time,
how did Milroe look versus Georgia and LSU versus Tennessee and South Carolina?
The first half of Georgia, he looked out of this world. Second half, he looked average.
I mean, they were up so much they really didn't have to do what he was doing in the first half. But
yeah, keep the offense on the field and not let the other team come back.
Yeah, well, the defense couldn't stop a nosebleed in the second half either, but that's for another.
And that's been part of their problems this season. Like, let's not act like we've both said it. There's no clear-cut one or two teams in the country this year.
Yeah, when Oregon can almost get had at Wisconsin, sure. That's
all I've been trying to say.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying.
I think like you put any team on a neutral site, any team could get got this year.
Well, like I say, the wild part about it is now all these SEC teams, if it goes to fruition, they would have to go to cold land and be in all those cold weather games.
And you have to factor that in.
Oh, that's going to be an interesting
caveat. If you got to go to Happy Valley,
well, like I say,
you got to go to South Bend.
FanDuel, they came out with fun odds. Like if those games that were the playoff games that are in now, they had Ohio State as a 21-point favorite over BYU, and then all the SEC teams on the road were favored to win at Penn State, at Indiana, and at Notre Dame.
You ever seen a Southerner in the cold?
Yeah, it's cold, butt naked. It's cold.
It changes everything. Like, people don't want to factor it in. If you got to go to Happy Valley and it's like 20 degrees, you got to play in a football game. It's no different than why you think all the Southern teams like bringing the Northern teams down here week 1, 2, or 3, a non-conference. It's a factor. You don't want to play in that heat in August where it's 100 degrees. Now going up north, and if you got to play at Notre Dame where they're going to grow the grass 10 feet high and it's
like I say, it's definitely going to be an interesting caveat too.
It changes everything.
Like I said, that'll be interesting to see who gets the home game. Like, how does it change in the next 2 weeks? Like, to some of those flipping where like Indiana gets in, but they got to go to Alabama or Georgia or Ole Miss or whatever. So it'll be.
I don't think they'll be ready for those environments. I just think a team like that's not used to being in environments like that, it changes everything. Like, what's their biggest game per se? Going to the whiteout, going to Ohio State. Yeah, those are big games, but going to a Southern team and just say prime time when the places are rocking it's totally different. You take Indiana to Death Valley at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night, and them boys don't even know what the hell to do. But if you take LSU to Indiana when it's January, and the snow's coming down,
no, like I say, it'll be interesting to see those teams having to go to South Bend and
prime example. Watch Miami every year when they got to go to a cold weather place for a bowl game or whatever. Them boys look like
well, it's like even
like a totally different team.
Yeah, it was like Miami going to Kansas City in the playoffs last year. You know,
oh yeah, that team they never left South Beach. Their bodies were there. That was about it. All right, man, gotta go.
Yeah, get to work, buddy. Enjoy college football. Enjoy the college football this weekend. Let's see if we get some upsets. Let's see if some chaos occurs.
I hope
If
so.
not, yeah,
That just make that chaos occurring just helps the sport. Like
yeah,
the
no,
sport really doesn't need help, but it makes you tune in.
yeah, like I said, I think chaos is fun, and like I say, it makes for good arguments and debates and whatever. So, again,
And then we're all wrong.
it's all gonna exactly. It's all gonna hash. It's all gonna hash itself out to where we're making literally just like the NCAA tournament. You're like a bubble team. You're like, well, it worked itself out. That team shouldn't have got in. That team should have. Then we may have some big huge argument. We'll see what happens. Who knows? But we made it a 2-hour pod today, record timing. So good luck if you made it this far. If not, we'll catch you on the next side. Holler at your boy.
Like, subscribe, share.
Go Canes, beat Wake Forest. Go Gators, beat Ole Miss. Let's go. Holler.
You can say Florida State?
They're going to get their second win. Go Noles.